Good Monday morning, everyone. I hope you guys are all ready for day 5 of the trial. Let me unmute this real quick and see what's happening. Nothing yet. Okay, good. How's everybody? Hope you had a great weekend. Good morning, Pink Dahlia. Good morning, Kez Chick. Good to see you both. Court's about to get underway. I guess they're waiting for the jury. So we're just going to chill. I'm going to stream until they take a break for lunch. And then I'll end my stream. And then I will cover whatever took place this after lunch's testimony tonight. I'm probably going to have to start going live a little bit earlier than 9 o'clock. Good morning, Amelia Sparkles. Good to see you, babe. It's good to see all of you guys. Because I don't want to keep everybody up too late. It's good to see you too, Pink Dahlia. I don't want to keep everybody up too late. Plus, I got to start like getting better on a more, I got to get switched to an earlier schedule as school is about to start here. So that's importante. Yeah, I'm very excited. This is a big year, and not for me. I'm not going to school because, you know, I've already been to school. I've already been there, done that. I'm too old for all that business, but, you know, it is my daughter. And so, you know how that goes. Got to check the outfit 11 billion times. Got to make sure you're dressed just right. So, got to get on a reasonable schedule. Hey, Summer Lilacs. Good to see you, babe. Have a great day at work.
Let the record reflect that the defendant is present with his attorneys, the state is present, and the jurors are present and seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone had a great weekend. Yes? Okay. Do you all feel refreshed today? All right, very good. Thank you all for being punctual. Last week, the state finished off with a witness, and is the state ready to proceed today?
State's ready, Your Honor.
All right, before we do that, let me remind members of the jury, thank you all for your attention. I see that some of you are taking notes. That's great. But remember that those are just to aid your memory, okay? And if your notes conflict with what another juror remembers to be the testimony, then go with your memory. This is just advice that I'm giving you. No juror's notes trumps another juror's memory. Does that make sense?
Unless,
So
what if their
it
memory is
helps you,
bad?
yes, by all means, continue to take your notes. But bear in mind that as you're taking notes, you may be missing some testimony that's ongoing. So I trust you to use your good judgment and common sense to listen to the testimony. Be attentive, please. All right.
So while
Next
we
witness.
wait for
Your Honor, this time the state will call Agent Randy.
the witness to get on the stand, if you guys could, please do your girl a favor and give her a thumbs up on the stream, por favor. I'd appreciate it very, very much. This is I'll
Do
give
you
you guys
swear
a
that the
live
testimony
chat
you will give will
reminder
be the truth, the whole truth,
and a
and nothing but the
reminder
truth,
that
so help
this
you God?
is a
Thank you.
trial in which the man is charged with
State may
the
proceed.
murder of
Thank
his
you,
two
Your Honor.
daughters. This may be
Good morning,
triggering.
Agent
There's
White. Would you
abuse
please state your
discussed,
name and
etc.
spell it for the record?
So this is a
Randall
trigger
White,
warning.
RANDALLWHITE.
Agent White, where are you currently employed?
I'm employed with the FBI in Dallas.
Thank you,
How long have you been
Chick.
with the FBI?
11 years.
And in what capacity do you work for the FBI?
The big
I'm a
dahlia.
special agent.
Could you tell the jury a little bit about your training and education and background in order to become an FBI agent?
Yes, all agents attend the FBI Academy at Quantico, where we learn all sorts of different law enforcement techniques and investigative methods. Before that, I was in the Marine Corps. I served as a, a special intelligence communicator.
So,
Thank
you've
you
been
for
with
your
the
service,
FBI
Mr. White.
For 11 years. How long have you been assigned to the Dallas office?
6 years.
Now, are you familiar, or are you aware of a
Yes, he is, Chick.
top 10 most wanted fugitive by the FBI, known by the name as Yaser Abdel-Said?
Yes, I am.
Were you aware that he was he had an active federal warrant for unlawful flight from prosecution by the FBI?
Yes.
Now, do you know an agent by the name of Lori Gibbs, Mario Verna, and Daniel Jimenez?
I know them all, yes.
Do you know that they were the lead case agents at certain periods of during the investigation and ultimate apprehension of Yaser Said?
Yes, I know that.
Now, back in August of 2020, were you assigned a specific task force within the Dallas office of the FBI?
Yes, the Violent Crime Task Force.
And can you tell us a little bit about what that task force is assigned or what they do?
Yes, the task force is made up of FBI agents and local detectives from state agencies and other cities in Dallas and surrounding areas.
It's much better,
And we
Chick.
investigate
Much.
all sorts of violent crimes,
Thankfully.
including bank robberies, robbery crews, homicides, sex assaults, fugitives, and various other violent crimes.
Did you have any specific tasks or responsibilities in that particular task force?
I cover a lot of different things, but I'm primarily the bank robbery coordinator.
Now, with regards to the task force itself, is it comprised of multiple agents, multiple FBI agents?
Yes, it is.
And is it fair to say that you all work together or assist each other in your various investigations?
Absolutely, yes.
Now, in August of 2020, do you recall who the lead case agent was?
At that time, the lead case agent was Dan Jimenez.
Okay, and do you know, Mario Verna, was he still with the Dallas office back in August of 2020?
Yes, he was the supervisor over the Violent Crime Task Force.
All right. Now, in August of 2020, were you asked or did you participate in the investigation ultimate apprehension of Yaser Said?
I did, yes.
Can you tell the jury a little bit about what your role was in ultimately apprehending the defendant?
In early August of 2020, Mario Verna asked me to get involved in the case. Up to that point, I hadn't been assigned to the case and only knew about it a little bit through passing, through other people talking about it on the squad. And so I met with Dan Jimenez and got caught up on some of the things that have been going on with the investigation. And then I led an effort to conduct surveillance on family members in an attempt to locate Mr. Said.
Can you tell us who those family members were?
Yes, it was primarily, actually, it was almost exclusively Yasin and Islam.
And Yasin is, how is he related to the defendant?
Yasin is his brother, and Islam is his son.
Yasin is the defendant's brother, Islam is the defendant's son.
Correct.
Just
Yes.
to clarify. All right. Now, when it
I
came
think they
to
might have
surveillance
adjusted the
of these two
mics,
individuals,
Amelia.
What, if anything, were you doing to kind of keep an eye on these two folks?
Early on, I was told that they had been successful at using or detecting our surveillance in the past, but before my time. And so we were a little concerned about doing traditional vehicle surveillance on the family. So we did some records checks through license plate readers and to determine where their cars had been seen or spotted by different cameras. And then ultimately we used a camera and an airplane.
See, y'all, the
Okay, so
FBI don't
let's
play.
stop that for just a second. Were you aware as to whether or not Yasin Saeed had any children?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Can you tell us what their
I want to
names
know
were?
what they did too, because
I
it's
honestly
way
can't
better.
recall all their names. I know Dalal Saeed was someone of great interest to us at that time.
And that was his daughter.
It was, yes.
Does Amira Saeed also sound familiar?
Yes, yes.
Was that his other daughter?
It is his other daughter.
Were you made aware that Amira and Dalal owned property in Justin, Texas?
I was, yes.
Specifically 712 West 1st Street. in
Now
Yes,
we
I
get
was
to
right.
how Justin,
and
Texas
what, if
is
anything, did you
connected.
do with
Okay.
that information?
So we did a drive-by one morning to see if what we could just see about the house, what it looked like in real time, rather than just Google photos. And we observed that there was trash on the curtilage of the property at that time.
And did you or any member of your team coordinate with the folks that typically pick up the trash for the city to obtain that trash from the curb?
We did. We made contact with that company as they were actively picking up trash. We identified ourselves, asked them to pick that trash up and provide it to us directly, and they did do that.
Was there anything of useful note contained within the trash?
I don't think so. Ultimately, the trash that was out on the curb, there was like a chair, some sort of office chair, and there was also several large plastic bags. We opened those, and they were full of leaves and other like trash litter it was a kind of a busy street, and there was like fast food containers and stuff like that that looked like they had been weathered and run over and things like that.
Did you make any other efforts to do any surveillance on 712 West 1st Street in Justin?
We did. We decided to put a camera.
I
want to
go to Australia too. I always have.
Through license plate readers, we had observed that Islam's and Yasin's vehicles had both been observed at that residence by the license plate readers. So we went ahead and decided to put a camera up at that time.
So you had information that Yasin and Islam's vehicles were going to that property.
Yes.
And so once this camera.
I just want to say this real quick, just as a side note that has nothing to do with anything. I want to go to Australia because I've always wanted to go, but also I was over on Better Call Saul's channel whenever she was doing the Johnny Depp trial. We watched the verdict together. And she showed me this video of these two koala bears. They were in a neighborhood, and one koala kicked the other koala bear out of the tree, and because they were taking a nap, and the koala bear that got kicked out of the tree, like not physically kicked out, but just she didn't fall or anything, but she sat on the sidewalk in front of the tree, and she just made this sound, and I thought it was the cutest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. this koala bear throwing a whole temper tantrum. So I want to go to Australia because it's beautiful, but while I'm there, I have to see the koalas. Hey, Nonstop Mom, good to see you, babe. All right, here we go. Yeah, it was like, it was so cute.
Was put up, was it recording 24 hours a day, 7 days a week?
It was, yes.
Do you recall about when that camera would have been put up?
I believe it was on August 17th, 2020.
So sometime in mid-August.
Yes.
All right, and when it came to surveilling or watching this video feed, were y'all watching this live?
I will. During the daytime hours, I watched it continuously. I had an iPad, and I would sit at my desk and while I was working other cases and continue to observe. And anytime there was movement, I would see what was going on. And then at night, we would let it run, and then the next day we would usually go back and review anything that had happened overnight.
Did you ever observe in that video feed Yasin or Islam Saeed go to 712 West First Street?
We observed them go into that residence multiple times.
What kind of vehicle did they typically drive when they would go to the house?
It was a Toyota RAV4.
Was there anything unusual about the back of the vehicle?
I don't recall anything unusual about the vehicle.
Okay, no worries. Now, when it came to observing Yasin and Islam Saeed, did you observe them enter the residence?
Yes,
Did you observe them exit the residence?
I did, yes.
Outside of Yasin and Islam Saeed entering and exiting that house in Justin, did you observe anyone else enter or exit the home?
Negative.
All right, now, did you ever observe Yasin or Islam Saeed bring items into the home or remove items from the home?
Yes, they brought in groceries. It would appear to be groceries in grocery bags, case of water, stuff
You
like that.
are right, Pink Dahlia.
We had watched them bring those things in.
He does look similar.
And then several times we also watched
Oh, wait,
them
I have
bring
something
out
else
what
I
appeared
want to
to be
ask you guys
trash
before I
bags
forget.
and then put them in.
So last night when we were watching the Diane Downs part 1 of her 2020 parole hearing, we went and watched the video of her 2010 parole hearing, and she was talking about the Kookaloos, and I was thinking that I want to add another membership tier and make it Kookaloos. What do you guys think? That's all I wanted to ask. Now we'll back to the trial.
To the vehicle.
So they didn't place those trash bags on the curtilage or the curb to be picked up by the trash company?
That's correct. And we found that odd, especially because there was a trash bin located on the outside of the house that they would walk past to put the trash into the vehicle.
Okay. Do you recall about how long you and your team watched this video feed from the time that camera was installed?
I believe it was 9 days.
I cannot
Now,
forget the
do you
Kookaloos, Amelia.
recall on,
It's going to be my
you
new
talked
favorite
about
word.
how, during the evening hours, obviously you were not working during the evening hours, so that would be, I'm assuming,
Oh, you have to,
after
the
5
Pink
p.m.
Dahlia.
until
She'll
early
drive.
morning,
She'll make you so angry.
does that sound about right?
Yeah, I was pretty excited about the case. So I did watch it in the evenings quite a bit too, but obviously not all night long.
Okay. Did you observe anything during the evening hours of any kind of movement or Yasin Saeed or Islam Saeed entering or exiting the residence?
In the review the following day, yes, we did see other things. We would see them come and go. Sometimes they would come
I
and
feel
go
like
in the
it
evenings anyway,
fits.
so they
Just
wouldn't leave
because
until after
it's
dark.
the ward, which
Um,
is a branch of
and I
True
would
Psych
watch
Ward,
that. But
and
the day after, when
course
we
we
would
would
do
have
the review of
Kookaloos.
the previous night's
Hey,
video,
Bowling
we
with
often
Cotton
saw
Balls,
lights
good to
coming on
see
and
you.
off,
Happy
and what
Monday to you
appeared to be
too. Thanks for
a
coming.
person walking behind a backlit in front of a curtain.
And did you have any reason to believe that it was Yasin or Islam Saeed that were
Christine
walking
G,
back?
that's me.
No, because we had seen them leave the residence.
Kookaloos.
Now, so ultimately, so you told us that you continue to observe through this video feed, this live video feed. Did you guys conduct any other type of surveillance on Yasin and Islam Saeed or this property?
We conducted surveillance on them at an address in Euless as well. As a matter of fact, specifically while we put up the camera, we did do that. We kept eyes on them to make sure that they weren't at the residence at the time we did it.
Very clever,
and then
Christine.
We observed them with a plane while they drove.
Okay, so
I'm
let's
sorry
talk
to
about
anybody
that.
on the
But,
replay for my
let's go
outbursts.
specifically to August 25th, 2020. Prior to August 25th, 2020, did your team conduct any air surveillance on Islam and Yasin Saeed?
We attempted to, and I can't remember exactly how many times, but we did set up, I would say, we would set up a surveillance on the residents, and in an attempt to catch them bringing trash out so that we could collect that trash. And we weren't successful on our first try, because they just didn't bring out trash, I believe. But we would set up in a way that they couldn't observe our cars. We wouldn't get our cars anywhere within eye shot of them. And we let the plane do the work for us, and it would take them away. When they didn't have trash, we usually let them go without any additional surveillance. But on the 25th, we did observe them bring trash out, put it into the RAV4, and depart the residence. And at that time, the plane stayed with them.
What does that
Wow.
mean that the plane stayed with them?
The plane
That's interesting.
went from flying circles over the house to observing them. They still fly. I don't know exactly. I've never been up in the plane, but I believe they fly like pretty big circles around the vehicle as it's moving to stay with it. And so it produced a video which showed it from different angles as it was going, and it drove to South Lake, Texas.
How were the pilots aware of what kind of vehicle they were looking for if they're so high in the air?
That's a great question. So we put them on the residence. They can see the residence and they see the car there, and
It is so
never
early
leaves their
still for
sight.
you, babe.
So they are able to maintain
Poor Christine.
specifically a camera stuck directly on that vehicle. So continuously throughout the entire movement, there's not a break in an observation of it.
Now, on August 25th, 2020, do you recall Yasin and Islam Saeed going to the residence around 4 p.m.?
Yes,
Did they leave the residence?
they did.
Do you recall it being about 8:45?
I do recall that. Mhm.
And at that time, did you or any of your members of your team observe Islam and Yasin Saeed remove items from the residence?
Yes, through a camera, we were able to observe them leave with 2 bags. They look like grocery bags that were tied closed.
Did air surveillance continue to monitor Yasin and Islam Saeed as they left 712 West 1st Street?
They did, yes.
And you talked about South Lake, Texas. Did that vehicle contain that had Islam and Yasin Saeed? Did that vehicle ultimately end up in a parking lot in South Lake, Texas?
It did at a Panera Bread.
Okay, and are you aware of what, if anything, Yasin and Islam Saeed did with those grocery bags?
Yes. As the plane was working, they were calling out over the radio to us their observations.
Hey, Rochelle,
we no
Sean,
longer
good
on the ground
morning,
had a
babe.
visual of them at
Good
that
to
time.
see ya.
FBI agents in the air did, and they would relay to us over the radio as we observed them bring the bags out, put them in the rear of the car, and then as they left, our camera view, the plane gave us everything after that. They drove to South Lake, and then went to a Panera Bread parking lot where they both exited the vehicle. It looked like Islam went to another vehicle, a Suburban that we know he drives, and they both were standing outside of the vehicle.
Oh, I'm
right
happy
next
to
the
have you,
Panera
babe.
Bread. So the plane called that out, but as they kind of came around the building, we lost that angle on exactly what they were doing while they were standing there. But as soon as they drove off, we drove up and found those same bags.
Or did you collect those bags?
We did collect those bags.
And were those ultimately collected and then subsequently analyzed?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So
Now,
don't think that you guys
now
are
that
going
you
to
know
be
that
able to
there
drive your
is,
trash somewhere
there's
else. The
trash
FBI
being
is on it.
actively removed from the residence and sent very miles away to South Lake. What, if anything, did you and the task force do at that point?
That night we analyzed that trash and went through the bags, and then a decision was made that we thought we had enough PC to conduct a search of the residence for his person, and we contacted our leadership as well as the U.S. Attorney's Office and our SWAT team and got everything in motion to conduct a search warrant arrest.
Now, when you say PC, we're talking about probable cause.
Probable cause, yes.
And probable cause is what you need to be able to get a search warrant to enter someone's home.
Yes, ma'am.
Were 2 search warrants executed, one on the Euless residence and one on the Justin residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Were they executed at the same time?
They were,
Sounds-
yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, now, were you present for the execution of those search warrants?
I was present at the Justin residence.
And was that on August 26th, 2000?
I feel
was.
like they,
And at
that's
that
like
time,
the
you talked about
newbie's
SWAT
job,
being
you know, when they
present,
first get
were
to
other members of the FBI.
get in, they make them check the trash.
Yes,
That
as
would be
well
their
as
job.
the Texas Department of Public Safety.
And once, and was a search warrant subsequently executed at 712 West Justice?
It was, yes.
West First Street, excuse me.
Yes, thank you for the
Did
reminder, babe.
defendant,
Give me,
was the
give
defendant
our, give
apprehended
your
by
girl a
prosecution?
thumbs up.
He was, yes, he came up.
And do you recall if he
Please.
came out voluntarily or if it was a struggle to get him out of the house?
He came out voluntarily.
And was he ultimately taken into custody?
He was, yes.
Do you recall how you or your task force or the other agents and officers out there, how were you able to get the defendant?
Thank
to
you,
exit the
Rochelle.
property?
The SWAT team did what's called
Thank you,
a
everyone.
surround and call out. So they surrounded the property and then they dropped a lot of flashbangs in the backyard, which drives people away from wanting to flee out the back. We know that we had heard in the past that in Bedford he had fled potentially over a balcony. So we were concerned about him trying to escape out the back of the residence. So they put some flashbangs in the backyard, and which we think ultimately drove him out the front door.
Well, can you tell the jury what a flashbang is?
Yeah, it's an explosive device that's just loud and bright. It disorients people, but when it goes off,
Well, we
in
are
your
so
yard,
glad
it-
that
it
you're out
gives
from
you,
under that rock
if you're
and
inside of a
in here in
residence,
the
it definitely
light
gives
with
you
the
the
rest
impression
of
that
us.
there's
Cuckoo.
a law enforcement presence in your backyard.
And was that tactic employed before Yaser Said exited the residence?
It was, yes,
So he exited the residence, he was taken into custody, is that right?
that's correct.
Now, do you see Yaser Abdel Said here in the courtroom today?
I do.
Are you able to identify him by article of clothing that he's wearing?
Yes, I mean, he's wearing a suit,
What color mask is he wearing?
a blue mask.
Okay, so co-counsel chair 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What chair would the defendant be seated in?
5.
Please let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant in open court.
The record will so reflect.
Now, Agent White, once the defendant was
It takes
taken
some
into
getting used
custody,
to,
was
Rochelle,
search
but
warrant executed on the
eventually you
property.
adjust
Did
to
y'all
being
know
back in the
that?
light. Sometimes I have to hide out for a little bit myself. It just gets to be too much.
And are you aware that certain items were collected out of the residence on August 26, 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
And then are you aware that a second search warrant was conducted on September 3rd, 2020?
Yes, ma'am.
What was the reason for the second search warrant?
During the first search, our squad was, the task force was spread pretty thin between 2 residences we were dealing with, as well as multiple prisoners at that point. So, because we had taken into custody Islam Said and Yasin Said at the ULIS residence. And due to that fact, we normally play a more active role in a search warrant, even when the evidence response team is there. But because we weren't there, they took photos of things and then collected items. Upon reviewing the photos, observed that Yaser's passport had been photographed but not collected. And we thought it was important for our unlawful flight to avoid prosecution case that we get it. So a second search warrant was executed so that we could collect that passport.
Was that passport there on September 3rd, 2020?
It was not.
Was the FBI able to recover that passport?
Yes, ultimately, a nephew of Yaser named Jason Said was contacted and claimed he did have it, and then he voluntarily provided it to the FBI.
So, and there's some time between August 26th, 2020 and September 3rd, 2020. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it appear at least that someone had been in the house after the first search warrant was
Because
executed?
he's wearing
Yes,
it
and
correctly.
they said as much.
Yes, chick.
You're a romantic, Coach.
You may.
Okay, so Agent One, I'm going to show you what's previously marked.
Well, listen, because I want to address this because this is important. You guys are important to me. I will say this. I can't control other chats, obviously, on the YouTubes. But what I will say here for my chat is that we don't do drama. We don't do attacks on the people in the chat. We're this channel doesn't flow like that. Now, will I read some criminals for filth? Absolutely. Will I make jokes about criminals? Absolutely. But you're, as much as the internet can be safe, obviously, I don't, if people screenshot and stuff, I don't control over that. But what I will tell you is that nobody here will make you feel like you don't have a choice and you can't say what you want here. I promise that I will promise you. That's what I can promise you guys in my chats, in my chat. We don't attack the chatters. We do be jokesing on the criminals. Not even, not even going front. We do. Sometimes these criminals, it's good for them.
Part of States Exhibit 137 through 146. Do you recognize these photographs?
I do.
What are these photographs of?
These are photographs of the trash. That
Oh,
was
I'm
collected at
And
sorry.
this would have been on August
Pink Dahlia, I'm
25th,
so sorry.
2020.
Yes, ma'am.
Any changes, alterations, or deletions to these photographs? Do these appear to be the items that y'all observed and took into custody on the 25th of
Yes,
August?
ma'am.
Offering States Exhibit 137 through
Well, I just appreciate y'all being here. So
146 new admissions entered as counsel for objections.
this is a good place to come to be distracted when you have stuff going on, I think, because we can talk about what we all have in common, which is a love for true crime, right? And
Permission to publish.
there's camaraderie in that. And I think you'll find it, for me anyway, when I commiserate with people that I have things in common with,
what I'd like
talking
to
about
do
a shared
first,
interest, it does
Agent
make
White,
me
is play some of the surveillance
feel
video that we've
better
already talked
about stuff that's
specifically
going on in
the
my,
53
personal
at this
life.
time. I just have one moment to set up her.
Aw, thank you, Amelia. I'm just so glad you guys are here and so supportive.
Agent Jimenez. Mhm.
Gotcha. The Pink Dahlia. Well, we're here for you, girl.
Okay.
Well, listen, I'm just grateful to have you guys here, and you're welcome. Anything I can do, let me know. I'll give it my best try. Amen, Amelia. Push peace and keep it in motion. Oh, I'm glad you're liking it, bowling with cotton balls. Yeah, you got like true crime is a heavy topic,
Okay.
but
So Agent White.
everyone every so often there's some levity, and
we're
you got to
planning,
take
this
time
is
to
Mark
appreciate
Smith,
the levity.
Crime Reporter, on States Exhibit 253, and we can see here that this is August 19th, 2020. at approximately 23:51. What time would that be in regular people time?
Regular
That's
people time.
11:51 p.m.
Okay, it's almost midnight, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so the state's gonna start this clip starting at 0 seconds. Actually, Your Honor, because it's a bit dark to see, is there any way we could dim the lights for this particular portion?
Amen, Pink Dahlia. Amen. Life is serious enough, you know? Sometimes you just got to laugh. And as we've all learned, maybe some of us haven't because we haven't watched Zombieland, but one of the rules of Zombieland is enjoy the little things. Those are important. Got to enjoy the little things. All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to
Okay,
be
so
in
about
chat, but I'm going to
21
mute.
seconds. Do you see a figure of a male figure across from the right side of the window to the left side of the window, the left window?
I did, yes.
All right, and I'm going to continue playing the video. And I've actually had about 23 minutes, 51 seconds, 23, 51, 45. What do we see at that point?
What appears to be a male or a person walking from the left side of the screen to the right in the window.
So let me back up again. I'm going to start the video over from the beginning because it is a bit hard to see. Actually, all right. So I'm marking here on at about 21 seconds. We're looking at the window, and that's where I want to draw the juror's attention to. And then again, that figure crosses the opposite way, the way that it came. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Now, thank you, Judge. That's all I needed for this clip. Thank you. Now, Agent White, specifically to this clip on August the 19th, 2020, are you aware as to whether or not Yaser or Islam Saeed were at the residence?
They were not at the residence at all.
And is this nighttime?
It was, yes.
So are you, with regards to the way the camera is set up, is it able to still continue to detect visual movement despite the fact that it may be dark?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's move on to the second clip. On State's Exhibit number 253, which is marked as clip 14 for the court reporter. And so this is, just so the jurors are understanding, this is August 23rd, 2020. Now, here in this clip, if you tell the jurors if this is daytime or nighttime that we're looking at.
This is daytime. It's approximately 12:40. It's at 12:46 p.m.
Now, we see a vehicle that's in the driveway. Is that the vehicle that Yaser Saeed and Islam Saeed would typically drive when they would come to the residence?
No, they came in a Toyota RAV4, and we never saw that vehicle move at all.
During the entire duration of the 9 days that you watched surveillance, that vehicle never moved.
That's correct. It never moved.
Did you find that to be unusual?
I did.
Why?
It was registered, I believe, to Dalal, and we knew through surveillance that Dalal was driving a separate vehicle. She had a red Lexus, and this vehicle didn't move. And it, to me, as we were developing the investigation, appeared to just be a ruse to throw us off.
And so somebody was living there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I'm going to play the video. And this is about 12:46:08. We're looking at on the timestamp. 12:46:53, we see a vehicle enter the screen. Can you tell us what vehicle we see here?
This is the Toyota RAV4.
And I'm going to draw your attention to the back of the RAV4. Was there specifically where the back door is? Let me pause the video at 12:46:56. What is on the back door of this RAV4?
A tire.
Did air surveillance use that kind of as a way to sort of continue to denote and demarcate where the vehicle was as they were kind of traveling?
I believe that they likely could use that. I'm not 100% sure what they.
Did y'all on the ground use that as sort of a way to continue to monitor and uniquely identify this vehicle?
We knew this vehicle from what it looked like on the ground and would definitely would recognize it based off of that tire on the back, but I'm not sure.
Okay, and so I'm going to continue playing the video at this point. And we see the right door open at 12:47:05, and the left door open at 12:47:08. Then we pause the video again. We see two individuals exit the vehicle. Can you tell me who the individual is who's exiting the driver's side door?
That is Yaser Saeed.
And he is the defendant's brother.
Correct.
And we see an individual who's at the back door. I talked about that tire at the back door. Who is that individual?
That is Islam Saeed.
The defendant's son.
Yes.
At 12:47:13, we see Islam Saeed open the back door where the trunk would be. But what does he remove out of the back trunk?
A watermelon.
Now, watermelon is a fresh fruit. Would you agree with me on that?
I agree.
Now, what are they doing at this point at about 12:47:28?
They're going into the residence.
Who makes it entry to the door first?
Yasin.
And then is Islam followed behind him?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, this is about 3 days prior to y'all, 2 days prior to August 25th, 2020. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. At this time, I'm going to publish State's Exhibit 252, which is already previously admitted. And if the jurors wanted, they could watch this entire video or these clips in their entirety. They go on and on. Is that right?
They do. They're often there for hours on end.
Now I'm going to play clip 16 that actually has multiple files, but I'm going to start with clip 16A. And this would be on August 25th, 2020. And this is approximately 16:07:00, so 4:07 p.m. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, we did see some movement zooming in and zooming out. Did y'all have the capability to be able to zoom in to see closer up or zoom out to see further away?
We did, and a lot of these movements, just to be honest, were accidental. If you touched the screen or bumped it, it would move the camera, and there was a button to bring it back to where we had it pre-programmed.
Now, 160738, we see that same Toyota RAV4 drive into the driveway. And at 160751, who exits the passenger side and who exits the driver's side?
Islam was the passenger, and Yasin was the driver.
Who opens the door at 160802?
Islam.
Does it appear that he and Yasin Saeed are retrieving items from the back of the RAV4?
Yes, they appear to be bringing in groceries again.
And here at 160830, could we see kind of a closer up view of that bag of groceries?
Yeah, we were trying to
I'm going to
look
pause
at the
this
grocery
just right
bags as they
quick
brought them in.
to answer some questions here. Excuse me. So the Pink Dahlia, this is what happened. This crime occurred January 1st of 2008. Okay. And what happened was, as soon as the murders were committed, allegedly, Yaser Saeed went on the run, and he was on the run for 12 years. So what we're watching happen in court right now is the FBI agent, one of them, who was in charge of surveilling and ultimately ended up apprehending Mr. Saeed, is testifying. And that's why it took so long to get this to prosecute Yaser Saeed. He had been indicted in 2008 for capital murder in the state of Texas. And then he was on the run. And so they didn't find him until August 23rd of 2020. And then, of course, it takes a while. Once that happens, there's procedures, right? And then it takes a while for it to get to court. So that's why we're just now seeing him be on trial for this. And if you want a good overall backstory of the crime, if you have Amazon Prime, and I think it might be available elsewhere, but I know for sure it's available on Amazon Prime, the documentary The Price of Honor is an excellent recap to the crime. So you might want to check that out. But yeah, this has been a long time coming for Mr. Saeed. And I'm going to fast forward, speed up this audio just a little bit so that we can be on track with the court. I'm only going to put it at 1.25. That won't change much, but it'll just, that way when they take their breaks and stuff, we'll know. Okay, here we go.
And then at 160840, does it appear that they enter the Justin residence?
Oh, good.
So I'm going to pause the video. Now, between 4 p.m. and
Oh, you're
8:45
welcome,
p.m.,
Pink Dahlia.
does
Yeah,
it
you
appear
should
that
really
Yasin
check
and
it out. I
Saeed
watched
remain
it
at that residence
yesterday.
for that almost 5 hours?
I've seen it
They do.
before, but it's been a while.
Let me draw your attention to clip 16E of State's Exhibit number 252. Now, this video starts at about 17:53:19. Do we see that same RAV4 in the driveway behind that other black city?
Yes, we do.
I'm going to fast forward the video. Do we see that it starts to get darker as I fast forward this video?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to fast forward the video to about 20:45, which will be 8:45 p.m. I'm actually going to start the video about 20:44:29. Now, is it dark at this point? And actually, Your Honor, could we dim the lights again? I apologize, Judge.
No worries.
Is it nighttime at this point at 20:44:30 or 8:44 p.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
We see that the front porch light is turned on in front of the residence.
Yes.
Okay, so the pink dahlia, I went over the mom's testimony Saturday. I did it Saturday evening, and then I did it was, so the recaps that I did Saturday evening and Sunday morning. So if you go back and watch those, you'll be really like caught up on what's happened with her testimony. All I did was mute it. There's nothing really, like they're just playing.
Is this what y'all were pretty much doing? Just watching the house mobile without any movement? I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, source. Oh shoot. Let me see how to say this.
maybe about 8:45,
Saoirse?
I'd say.
Is that right? I hope so. I feel like I should know. All right, Kez Chick. Thanks
So
for
that's,
being here, babe.
2702, we see the lights flash
You
on
good,
that glass
Noodle?
door, and an individual exits the residence. Do you know who that is?
That's Islam.
Sleep tight. Yay. Okay. I knew that there is an actress whose name is Saoirse, and she's
And the camera kind of shifts,
Irish, I
depending
think.
on what is
She
sometimes
was
seen.
in The Lovely Bones.
Are you able
She's
to
a
read
great
that?
actress. She's been in a ton of stuff, but The Lovely
What is
Bones
your
is
piece?
one
Yeah,
I
Islam's
think
opening the rear
most people would
of
be
the
familiar
left door
with.
and placing
And
two, what appear to be two tied
people
up,
always mispronounce her
grocery
name.
bags into the back, which was consistent with what we observed.
But I just want to make sure I say it right. Sometimes I forget.
Now at 20:03, we see someone at the door of the residence. Do you know who that person is?
That is just seen.
And here on the left side of the screen, we see another individual. Is that Islam site?
It appears to be Islam. Yeah.
Oh, that's an unfortunate place to have paused the video. I don't want to tell you your business, ma'am. Far be it from me.
What does it appear that it's guessing that Islam site are doing at this point?
Islam's placing a shovel in the back of the vehicle, and then they're, I believe at this point, leaving the residence in the RAV4.
We see that RAV4 back out of the driveway and exit the residence,
Yes, ma'am.
or the property of the residence. And at this point, or you can turn the lights on if that's the way to the court. At this point, Agent White, are y'all watching on August 25th, 2020? Are y'all watching the feed live?
Yes, our ground surveillance team was watching it live while the plane was overhead.
And are the two, the air surveillance and the ground surveillance, are they communicating with each other?
We are.
Now, at this point, is this when air surveillance begins to track and follow the RAV4 containing Islam Yaser?
That's correct.
And then ultimately, this vehicle ends up in South Lake, Texas.
Yes, ma'am.
And ultimately, they toss trash that y'all recovered.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so let's talk about the trash that y'all recovered. The CSI going to publish, starting with CSI Exhibit 137.
Oh, goodness. I will say that during the testimony of the medical examiner,
What do we see here, Agent White?
Those are the two bags that we collected.
it appears
from the
that
trash bin outside the
Yaser
airport.
did not
And then
look
138 was
at any of the
South Lake,
pictures
is
that were
right?
shown. He did put his head down.
What are the two colors of the bags?
Gray and brown.
Okay. CSI Exhibit 139, what do we see here?
This is one of the bags after it's been opened. We laid out paper and along with Irving PD's, Irving Police Department had a forensic person there with us.
A crime scene analyst
Yes.
who assisted? And did y'all, what kind of items were found in one of these bags in State's Exhibit 139?
Primarily of interest to us at the time were cigarette butts, which you can see here in the photo, as well as Coke cans, and then ultimately also water bottles.
Okay, so State's Exhibit number 140, you see some of those water bottles, we see the cigarette butts you're talking about, the Coke cans. Do you know what this is right here?
It's an egg crate full of coffee grounds, and everything is covered in like different kinds of like chicken juice or something to like.
Some sort of debris or
Yes,
waste
ma'am.
or whatever. State's Exhibit 149 is just basically a further review of what other items were contained within that bag. Is that
Chicken
right?
juice.
And then State's Exhibit number 142, what do we see here?
We see clothing items, eggshells, a pencil, and some sort of cream.
Okay, State's Exhibit 143, again, we see that water bottle. Do you know what these red pieces of ripped paper are, or cardboard are?
It's some sort of, I don't know if they were cigarette rolling papers or some sort of tobacco product.
Were you aware that Yaser did smoke cigarettes?
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit number 144, another angle of the trash, and then State's Exhibit 145 again, and then State's Exhibit 146. Talk about the chicken juice, we see some more here, and State's Exhibit 146 regarding chicken, part of the chicken, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so those items were collected. You said they were analyzed. How were they analyzed?
I believe the Irving crime scene technician conducted a swab of the areas on Coke cans and water bottles that would be consistent with placing them in your mouth for some DNA. And then he went ahead and fingerprinted items that could potentially hold fingerprint well, yes.
And okay, and so let me show you states. No, let's move to August 26th. The search warrants that were executed at the same time that the U.S. address and the Justin address. Do you recall about what time the search warrant was executed?
On which date? I'm
On
sorry.
August 26th, 2020.
About 5:30 in the afternoon, 5:45.
Now, at that time, we talked about how you had arrest warrants as well for some individuals. Who were the folks that you had arrest warrants for at that point?
At that point, I believe we had an arrest warrant for Islam Saeed as well, obviously for Yaser Saeed.
Ultimately, was there an arrest warrant also issued for Yasin Saeed?
At a later time, he was arrested based on probable cause for harboring a fugitive.
And was Islam Saeed also arrested for probable cause for harboring, or was he arrested for harboring a fugitive as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now let me show you State's Exhibit number 251. What are we looking at here?
This is a sketch of the residence in Justin.
Okay, and it's a hand-drawn sketch, is that right?
It is hand-drawn.
Not drawn to scale.
No, ma'am.
Can you kind of tell us, so the jurors understand when we go through these crime scene photos of the search warrants, can you kind of tell us what each of these rooms represent? Like if here at A, we see sort of an entrance or doorway. What would that doorway be?
That's the doorway that we observed in the videos of Islam and Yasin coming in and out of the front of the residence.
So this is the front of the house.
Yes, ma'am.
And is A the living room?
It is.
And what is F and E?
F is a bedroom. E Echo is like a linen closet or something in the hallway.
And then we see C, is that the bathroom?
That is the
Or a
bathroom.
tub? Is D another bedroom?
Delta, yes, that's a bedroom.
Thank you for correcting me. D is in Delta. What is B?
That is the kitchen.
And then can you tell us what G, H, and H, we see two H's here, what G, H, and H are?
Yes, G, I believe
This
was
is some
sort
old
of,
school
like a
detectiving,
sunroom.
you
I
know,
don't how
using
to
the
describe it,
trash.
on the rear of the house. And then the H that's lower on the screen here
Also,
is what
when
formerly was a
when the
garage that
federal
had been
agent
converted
testified
into
about
another
F,
kind of living space.
is
And then the
for
one further back with the
that
dotted
song
lines
from
around it is
SpongeBob
covered.
came into my head.
Now,
And now it's
did
stuck.
you enter the property?
I'm
did,
not going to
yes.
sing
Did
it
you observe
because
any
I don't
other
want it
sort
to
of,
get stuck for y'all too.
Did you observe any other room that was sort of man-made or built out in the house?
Yes, in room H, the lower H, you can see there's a little cutout in the top left corner. There was a room made of just drywall, and inside of it was a green cot with like a pillow. And
So can you circle, that screen also should work with your finger, if you want to circle that room, the H you're talking about. So we see sort of what appears to be almost like a bed in that lower H that also has a W in that same box. Is
And
that
then,
right?
yes, ma'am. And then right here against the wall was a piece of drywall with a handle on the back so that it could be picked up and pulled into place at this opening right here.
And then
Oh.
you conceal that specific room.
Yes, ma'am.
So did it appear to you that was another effort on the site's part to conceal?
Yeah, it's in my
Yes,
head
ma'am.
now.
Now, let's go through we'll go through August 26th first. All right, we'll publish at this time, starting with State's Exhibit 150. This is the front of the house that we've seen so far, and the door appears to be open. And then, to kind of give the jurors perspective, 151. Apparently, I wrote the camera. I already got it.
Goodness. I'm very sneezy today.
Okay, there we go. All right, so here in State's Exhibit 151, do we see the car that never moved to the left side of this image, and then that trash bin you were referring to as well?
Yes, ma'am.
State's Exhibit 152, what angle of the home is this?
This is the rear of the residence.
Now, are you able to tell the jurors, at least from this angle, where that build out was with the cot?
Yes, it would have been, this is the back covered H, the back room that was marked as H, and then on the other side of that wall was the build out.
Okay. And then another angle from State's Exhibit 53 of the backyard. And then is this that sunroom you're talking about? Or is that the other H we're talking about?
That, this is the back H, the covered patio with the dotted line around it is this space. This would be the room that I don't know if it would be a sunroom or not, but it was like a rear den.
And then the other side of the back of the house here is Exhibit 155. Now let's go into the house. Now I'm going to show these in sort of a panorama view. This is Exhibit 156. When you entered the Justin home, did it appear that there were furniture and personal belongings and items as if someone was residing in the home?
Yes, ma'am.
And then, so we see a couch here in State Exhibit 156. Facing the doorway here in 152, we see a television set. And then another set of couches here in 158. There appear to be here in State Exhibit 159. There appears to be a bookshelf with photographs and things like that. And then the opposite side here in 160, looking towards the door. This would be the living room, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's move to the kitchen here in State Exhibit 161. Again, where there are a lot of personal items and things like that within the kitchen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
It
it's
was
going to
well
be,
lit.
I'm going to have it in my head on a loop for a while until something else comes in
Things
it.
that would make a person comfortable. Paint pots and pans to be able to cook. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday it was
There's a refrigerator.
one
along with food here
pill
at the top of the
makes
refrigerator.
you smaller
Exhibit
and
163.
one pill makes you
And now,
tall.
as we're exiting the kitchen, where are we
The
going from
ones
this
that
point? And what
mother
do we see here?
gave you. Don't do anything
I believe this.
at all.
Is this the living room we see here?
Go
on the-
ask
on the-
Alice.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Yes, that
That's
is.
okay, that's okay.
When
And
she's
I have a
10
bad question,
feet
I apologize.
tall.
But you can
That
actually
song
see
was
some
in
of
my
the
head
personal items you see in the
yesterday.
living room.
Yes, ma'am.
And now it can
And
be
then
in
there's a
yours
short
too.
hallway. Does that lead to various bedrooms contained within the house?
Yes, there should be a bedroom on either side.
Anyway, do you remember how many bedrooms were in the home?
I believe 2.
And so we're walking down that short hallway again. Here in State
Well, that's a
Exhibit
better song.
165.
Yep, Jefferson
And then we
Airplane.
see here 166, a bedroom that contains, at least from the entryway, various personal items, including suitcases. And then here 167, we see a bed, shoes, clothing, Listerine.
Before that,
all
it was
within
Master of
personal
Puppets because I'd
Yes,
been
ma'am.
watching TikTok and, you know,
And then
they're
we're
all
facing towards that same door.
excited, you know,
towards the
over
entry of that
Master
room
of
and that door,
Puppets,
working
which
on
I
the
love. But
The next room we're getting to is 169. Again, we see a bedding, a suitcase, bottles. In 170, we see those same items as you enter the room. And in 171,
I was walking around singing a bunch of different parts.
Iron,
to the cats.
Again, personal items that would indicate someone was residing in the home.
They were
Yes, ma'am.
over it.
Now, let's go 172. Can you tell us what we're looking at here in terms of the entryway? Where are we facing at this point?
I believe this is looking into the converted garage.
Okay, so showing 173.
I was also
this
singing
is part of
Sad
the
But
converted
True
garage.
Yes, ma'am.
to
There's
them.
the mugs, water, and chairs and whatnot. In fact, there's 3 chairs. Is that right?
Nestor the
That's correct,
dog
yes,
is a fan. He was fine when I was singing to him, but the cats are like, could you shut up?
And another angle here in C6 at 175. is looking
They don't have a lot of patience for me or my shenanigans.
176
especially when I get on the
This is the
TikToks.
converted garage, and this would be the kitchen right here. Is that right?
That's correct.
We
Yes,
can
ma'am.
see the refrigerator in the back of this image.
They're kind of judgy. Yeah, it is Metallica.
We get to 178. So we see this lattice work. that we
I love
talked about
Metallica.
In the earlier exhibits.
I have forever and ever and ever.
There we go. What room
And
are
I'm
we
glad
looking
they're
at here in
getting
C6
a
at
newer
178?
fan base to
It's the
appreciate
covered- what
them
I
because
would
they
call
still
covered
rock
patio.
out like well.
And then an angle to the
Live
west
too.
on 179.
They have a
Yes, covered
YouTube
patio.
channel. They've been uploading
Also 180. where are we in position to that?
From their
that
tour,
other patio here in 180?
them playing
This is,
live, and I mean,
on towards the front of the house
phenomenal.
on the other side of the wall.
Okay. State's Exhibit 181, are we going into that other room marked H?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the doorway, and we see what appears to be concrete. Do you see that in State's Exhibit 181?
Yes, ma'am. We had observed them bringing in wheelbarrows full of concrete.
Did that appear to be consistent with the build out that you observed later on?
And anybody who's like
State's
now
Exhibit 182,
watching, you guys are now, and then
and then State's Exhibit 183, again, a closer up of that concrete.
during the replay, if you're wondering why they're showing this,
Now let's enter the
because it
room
does
here in
seem a
State's
little
Exhibit
bit
185.
tedious. Let me just turn her down just a scotch so I don't have to yell
Which room
over
of the
her.
house is it
Hold
State's
on a
Exhibit
second.
186?
I believe this is the H room. that
The
was
reason
located
why
here
they're
from the
showing
top
this
head
to the
to
jury and going through this, although it does seem like tedious testimony, is because the jury, they want the jury to see the lengths
State's Exhibit 191.
through which, no, that's not how I want to put it, the lengths that Yaser Saeed went to
Yes, this
to
was the
evade
entrance
being
to that,
arrested.
hidden room that was built
One
in the house.
could argue, which would be the state's position, that innocent people don't hide and avoid prosecution. Okay. I suspect the defense will argue that this was a post 9/11 world at this point, and he hid out of fear, not guilt. So there you go.
And is that where you find the build out?
Yes, ma'am.
Or the hidden room, 195? Can you tell the jurors what we see here in 195?
It's a cot with a pillow on it laid over on its side.
Now, to the left, we see what appears to be sort of a piece of gypsum or maybe wall. I'm not sure. Is that what you were referring to earlier?
Yes, ma'am. It's a piece of gypsum.
And then here in State's Exhibit 196 is the other side of that cot. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And 197.
The pink dahlia, if you go back
Does it
to,
appear that this wall came with this wall that we see here made out of
if you
plywood
watch
came with the
my
house?
live
No,
from
ma'am, it looks like part of the
Saturday,
construction
hold on a
project.
second. Let me turn them down again. From
So
Saturday
refrigerator here in
evening,
State's Exhibit 193.
I went over,
Earlier we talked about,
I played
part of the surveillance video
the
where
opening
on the
statements.
site,
You
Yesel
should
site
listen to
was working on
those
watermelon.
because it
Do you see
basically lays it all, how
I
the
do, yes.
defense,
Exhibit
both
199?
the defense and prosecution, how they lay it out, but how they're going
And is
to,
it fair to say that there's other
present
items
their
of food
case.
to keep a person nourished?
because essentially what the defense is saying
Peanut butter,
is
ice cream,
that when these murders occurred, law enforcement investigated the Muslim and not the suspect. They're saying that the boyfriends should have been suspects because they knew about the murders before they should have.
It appears to be a wig.
Frankly, after hearing the testimony from both boyfriends and the cross-examination, I don't find that to be true. I'm basing that solely on evidence that was presented in court.
Did you ever observe this card, or do you know what this card is?
I've seen the photo of it, and yes, that is Mario Verna's card. Is this card?
And State's Exhibit 205, this is Agent Verna's card that says, "Call me, please, Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent," with his address and the phone number. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Agent Verna was one of the lead case agents for several years prior to Agent Jimenez taking over. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
And
So
the
I'm gonna draw your
state
attention
also
to
has
Exhibit
to
number
show all of
25.
this
What are
too,
we looking at here?
Those are bullets.
because one of the other things that the defense has said, and you can tell in their line of cross-examination, they feel that the police, Irving Police, the FBI, all the government agencies essentially at one point or another botched this investigation. So the state has got to lay out all of the things meticulously. So that's why.
Pretty much the same for the most part.
Yes, ma'am.
And the jurors can take these photographs back as they see fit. Consistent evidence. And specifically, I'm going to draw attention to State's Exhibit 3232, which is self-contained in one of the bedrooms. And are you aware that a firearm or revolver was ultimately recovered at the residence that was missed on August 26th 2020.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm showing you that revolver here in State's Exhibit 233 and a close-up here in State's Exhibit 234. There appears to be also a prescription for Yasin Saeed along with the debit card right next to it.
Yes, ma'am.
A revolver is not a semi-automatic, is that right?
That is correct.
And then State's Exhibit 239 was more ammunition recovered at the residence pursuant to the second search warrant on September 3rd, 2014.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we see that here in 239?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll pass the next at this time, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Agent White, my name is Joe Patton, I work with Yaser. The thing I want to go over. When you took over this case, there was an active federal warrant for Yaser, correct?
Yes, sir.
Pursuant to 18 USC section 1073.
I'm not 100% sure that's what the.
If you look up behind you on the FBI top 10, it says unlawful flight for the
Yes, sir.
Illinois prosecution.
Yes, sir.
That's the
Yes,
the
sir.
code for that office, correct?
I believe so.
Oh, is it? Hey,
Um,
Sarah. Good to see
Your agency is
you.
what gave your agency jurisdiction.
Welcome
over this case,
back.
is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it Pink
The
Dahlia?
board
I've
of
never
the
gone by
FBI
Jenny,
involved
only
federal
Jen.
government Has to assert authority and jurisdiction over this case. Is that correct?
I don't know that that's entirely true. I think we can be asked to participate in investigations without a federal nexus. Yes.
Did the federal government assert authority and jurisdiction over this case by activating that warrant, including Yaser on the top 10?
Yes, sir.
So the house in Justin, you knew that this was purchased by his nieces. in
Listen, I don't want to be
2016, correct?
ugly to
I
the
did, yes.
How
defense
long did
attorney,
you
but
and your
come on,
agency
let's speed
surveil
up
this
these
house?
questions. You've had an hour and 13 minutes to sit and
24-hour
listen.
surveillance, about 9 days. Before that, we had
No,
conducted
Lou is not
spot
my is
surveillance
not
of
my
it,
middle name.
for a few days before that.
This was just days before the arrest warrant was.
Yes.
It's part of my last name. Uh-oh, what happened? I shouldn't have talked bad. Let's let it catch up.
Sir.
Well, I believe on
There we
direct,
go.
you said that the car that was parked there and did not move was
Hey,
noteworthy.
Jeanette,
It was
good to
noteworthy.
see
This
you.
is a car that was owned by the owner of the home.
Yes, sir.
Welcome
You
back.
pointed out that a RAV4 with a spare tire was another noteworthy surveillance that you made.
I don't know if noteworthy is the right word, but yes, it was something that helped us identify the vehicle.
And that fresh watermelon was also noteworthy.
Yes, sir.
They know to everything. What are you talking about? Stop
When
it.
you execute the search warrant, you
Come on.
arrest Yaser.
I get
and
poking
you
holes,
secure the
but let's be
premises, right?
let's be realistic here. This looks like you're just trying.
We
This is a
secured the premises
reach.
during the search. Yes, sir.
Flash grenades, SWAT team, big law enforcement presence. Go in, get Yaser, execute a search warrant.
Yes, sir.
During that search, you found lots of personal items.
Yes, sir.
Yaser was not alone in that house.
He was alone in the house.
Excuse me. Is it your belief that all of the personal items found in that house belong to Yaser?
I don't know. I don't.
Family photos on the bookshelf that doesn't include Yaser in any of the photos. You think those were his?
Probably not.
Do you think the gun that was found next to Yasin's medical bottle in a room that wasn't the hidden room was his?
I don't know.
I mean, the gun, y'all found out on the second search warrant, right?
Yes, sir.
So he was already in custody, in your custody, right? Or had he been arrested?
Yes, he was in Dallas County custody, I believe, at that point. Yes, sir.
And the feds just missed the gun and the ammunition that was in the house that y'all brought all this personnel in to clear out and secure and all this. You just overlooked that on the first search.
Yes, sir.
So you executed a second search warrant to come clean up the mess from the first one.
No, sir. We went back to retrieve the passport. There was a photo of it after the first search, and we realized it hadn't been collected. So it was important to the UFAP, the Unlawful Flight to Avoid Prosecution case.
From the day that the FBI initiated this until August of 2020, how many hours would you say that the FBI spent pursuing Yaser?
I have no idea. I couldn't even begin to speculate. It was before I was even in the bureau.
There you go.
Hundreds?
He's just said he
no idea.
can't speculate.
spend
Stop
hundreds of
asking
hours?
him.
Yeah, yes, sir, probably.
And you're one of many agents.
Yes, sir.
On the task force, was it limited to FBI or were there also other agencies involved?
There are other agencies involved.
So other agencies and other agents. I mean, this is a huge effort.
It was a big effort, yes, sir.
The aerial assets have been discussed quite a bit, so that y'all could locate the trash. How many hours? do
Hey,
you think
Sugar
the
Bee,
federal
good to
government
see ya.
spent With manned
I don't know
personnel
nonstop,
or,
Mom. That's
manned
just rude.
airplanes Surveilling this house.
I'll
with
tell
a
you what the point is when he's
uninterrupted
done.
Surveillance feed from a camera attached to that plane.
I think
Air specifically.
Yes.
I'll
Air
let me
specifically, I
just
think
push
they were up
pause
there
real quick.
2 or 3 different.
We're caught up. All right. So here's the deal. The reason why this line of questioning is occurring is that the defense's stance is that this was the FBI's involvement and the lengths that the federal government went to track down, surveil, and ultimately apprehend Yaser Saeed was less about him being a danger due to his charges, and more about him being unfairly targeted because he is Muslim. And I think that that's their stance, and that's the way they're going with this.
Days. They usually don't fly more than like 4 hours, so maybe like 12 to 16 hours, something like that.
You got any ballpark figures on how much money the federal government spent on this?
I'm going to object to Rollins at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ron.
I have no idea. A lot, sure.
Hundreds of thousands,
I have no idea.
Potentially,
millions?
I have no idea.
There you go.
Y'all spent more time digging through his trash than you did investigating the murders.
I don't know. I don't know what was investigated before my time, honestly, back in the early days of the investigation.
So earlier you talked about your experience in investigation and task force and teams and
Oh,
the agencies.
hold on. I got to say something else.
Uh,
Also, the reason why this line of questioning right now is occurring is because what they're saying is that at the federal government looked at the investigation that the Irving Police Department had done, right? Then they would have. These are their allegations that the FBI would have seen that this was not well investigated and they shouldn't have even stepped in. That's basically what they're asserting. All right, here we go.
Are you aware of anybody following up and investigating Eric Panorama?
I've never heard that name.
Did anybody investigate Victor Huerta?
I don't know.
Did anybody investigate Victor Ruiz?
I don't know.
Did you or anybody that you're aware of ever investigate the original allegations that kicked all of this off?
The unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. That's what kicked this off.
Murder, sir.
We were investigating an unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
So is it your position that the feds were just like the hound dog, just you didn't care about what the allegation was, you're just going after your guy?
I'm going to object to argumentative at this time.
It's
Your Honor.
extremely inappropriate.
Several questions that the defense is asking.
What?
Do you mind asking again?
Is it your position that it was your duty, all you cared about was getting Yaser?
That's not all I care about, but that was the focus of my investigation.
That's what he was asked to do.
Does the FBI or any agency associated with the FBI in a case like this concern itself with the quality of the allegations of the person that it is pursuing?
In terms of unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, we
In terms
absolutely.
of capital murder. We're not here. on
I don't
federal
invest-
case.
I wasn't
We're here about
investing.
capital murder.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
Yes, sir. I'm
When the witness is answering the question, allow him to finish answering before you ask another one. And, sir,
Yes, sir.
wait for the question before
Yes,
you
ma'am.
answer. Thank you.
Have to keep going.
You may proceed.
This judge doesn't play either.
Is the FAI concerned with the allegation that leads to the involvement of the federal government?
I don't know if any of you guys are
I
familiar
believe it should
with
be, yes.
the
sir,
case
but
against
in
Warren Jeffs.
different cases, when we have a
Hold on.
warrant,
Let me just push pause. I don't want to talk over him because I want him to hear. I want to hear what he has. I want you guys to hear his response. But I don't know if you guys are familiar with the federal case against Warren Jeffs and what they did to ultimately apprehend him, but it ended up sort of being just sort of luck. That ended up how they ended up catching him. But when they were investigating him, because obviously there was a warrant for his arrest as well, and he flew the coop, as it were. Once they started looking into the resources of the FLDS church, that is when they upped the ante and the manpower and hours that they put into trying to locate him. And he was born here in the United States. So I feel like does the FBI put this many resources into people who are wanted for murder, capital murder, all the time? No. The truth of the matter is, if it were me, okay, if I were the person that was under investigation for capital murder, their first thing they're going to do is look into my resources and see if also I financially can flee, if I'm connected to somebody who can pay for me to financially to flee, and if I have a passport. See, having a passport and having dual citizenship, that's why this went the way that it did. That's why. If they were investigating me for this, as I am right here, right now, today, would I get this kind of special attention? Probably not. But it has less to do with my race and more to do with what resources I have. And look what they put, exactly, the pink dahlia. Look what they put in to finding Brian Laundrie. So that's what is missing here. And I don't think that the jury is going to buy this. They're going to have to come with something harder, in my opinion.
and a judge has ordered someone be arrested, that's usually enough justification for us.
So it's not your job to figure out whether there's any merit to the allegations that start all of this.
If we have an arrest warrant, signed by a judge, then we pursue the arrest of that individual as ordered.
Right,
Without
counselor.
question.
Objection, ask and answer.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to pause him again. Listen, counselor, I understand and appreciate what you're doing here. It is your job, your sole job, to advocate on behalf of your client. You're doing a fantastic job with that. Okay. But the fact of the matter is here that in order for there to be a warrant issued in the first place, they had to go before a judge. And the judge is the one who decided that the evidence was enough to issue a warrant for arrest. Okay. Take it up with the judge who issued the warrant, not the FBI agent who was simply brought in
You
to
did not know
apprehend.
Edgar Ruiz was one of the last people to see Amina and Sarah alive.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know.
Here we go.
You did not know
Edgar didn't
Ruiz
see Sarah.
said that he was with Eric Penamino when the girls
I'm
were
going
murdered.
to object to hearsay at this time.
It's a question of whether he knew this or not.
Overruled.
Well, he's already answered, no, I'm going to object to asked and answered. He just testified that he doesn't know anything about Edgar Ruiz. So he's not going to know what Edgar Ruiz said or didn't say to anyone else in the investigation that wasn't Agent Randy White.
Sustained.
And meanwhile, Edgar Ruiz was not the last person to see Sarah or even Amina. Technically, Patricia would have been.
Hypothetically, Agent White, based based on your experience.
They're trying to frame it as if the entire FBI that investigated this case was obsessed. The federal government
Time, energy,
was
effort,
obsessed.
Training and experience. Would it concern you as a law enforcement officer if the issue that led to all of your work and all of your efforts was founded in part on a lie?
If that were the case, hypothetically, I suppose.
No further questions.
Thank you, State.
Very briefly, Judge. So Agent White, I just want to clarify something that one of the first questions the defense asked. When was the FBI made aware that Dalal and Amir Saeed had purchased that property in Justin, Texas,
I became aware in early August
of
and I,
2020?
of 2020, yes. ma'am.
And in fact, because the deeds, it is part of the evidence that's before the court or before the jurors and has already been previously admitted. Are you aware that they actually purchased that property in 2015?
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware of that.
Was the FBI aware in 2015 that Amir and Dalal Saeed had purchased that property?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now let's talk about, the defense has made an issue about the man hours and the amount of money that it took to apprehend Yaser Saeed. Yaser Saeed was on the top 10 most wanted, the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitive list. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the kind of effort that the FBI employs in anyone who's on the top 10 list?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
Because it's important work.
Now, in this case, the defendant had been charged, at least here in Dallas County, with capital murder. Did that also kind of promulgate or catalyze the desire to capture this person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I pass the witness at this time.
Anything else from the defense?
There you go.
Okay.
Are you
Major
sure?
released.
Yes, Your Honor.
Because now twice you've
Thank you.
remembered that you had other questions that you just didn't get to ask. So I just want to make sure you're sure you're sure.
Call the next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state calls Agent Sedgwick to the stand.
Well, you know what's interesting about that, Sugar Beet, is that they had Edgar Ruiz and they had Eric. I can't think of his last name. I can't say it right now. But they had both of the boyfriends on the stand. They've been here to testify, right? And if they were going to attempt to imply or suggest that they were and should have been suspects, they did a really poor job of that when they had them on cross, quite frankly, and that's the truth. They sort of hinted at it, but didn't really connect the dots. So the jury, in my mind, has probably forgotten all about any dots that may have been connected.
Mark Sedgwick, M-A-R-K, S-E-D-W-I-C-K.
And Agent Sedgwick, how are you employed?
I'm a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation out of the Dallas office.
How long have you worked for the FBI?
Next week will be 24 years.
Wow. Thank you for your service, sir.
And please tell the jury what you do for the FBI.
Currently, I'm a member of the CAS team, which is the Cellular Analysis Survey Team.
Oh, here we go, you guys. We're going to get into the
Yes, ma'am.
cell brights.
What is Cellular Analysis Survey Team?
What the CAS team is a group of specially trained agents and task force officers who have been certified as experts in the analysis of historical call detail records.
And please tell the jury, what is a historical call detail record analysis?
Basically, it's taking a CDR or call detail record or CDR. It's your phone bill. It has the date and time a call or text was made, the two parties involved, the two numbers, how long the call lasted. But it also has the cell tower and sector of that tower that was utilized when that call was made. So based on the tower and sector that was utilized and the rest of the towers in the area for that network, I can determine the approximate location that device had to be when that call or text was made.
Okay, so through this, you can tell exactly kind of the approximate location.
Yes, ma'am. I can determine where that device had to be when that call occurred.
Okay. Tell the jury kind of what kind of training you've had in this field to be able to do this.
I've had initially over 400 hours of training. That training was from other FBI agents, outside agencies or companies on how radio frequency actually works, which is how your cell phone communicates with a cell tower, is through radio frequency. But most importantly, I've been trained by the engineers from all the major service providers in the United States, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, on how the network's designed, how the network works, and how the phone interacts with the network.
Yes, Patricia is the mom's.
I have a Bachelor of Science in History from the United States Naval Academy.
Patricia is the mom. Sorry.
Have you testified as an expert in historical call detailed record analysis before?
Yes, ma'am, over 90 times in both state and federal court.
Over 90 times in both state and federal court?
Yes, ma'am.
What about here in Dallas County? Have you been tendered as an expert?
Yes, ma'am, several times.
Honestly, I think it's the boyfriend and then the boyfriends
Your
and
Honor,
then
at
the
this
mom.
time, I submit Agent Sedgwick as an
I think
expert
the mom is
in
Plan C.
historical call detailed record analysis.
Honestly.
No objection, Your Honor.
The court will designate Agent Sedgwick as an expert in said field.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Agent Sedgwick, were you asked to review phone records?
All right, I'll be right back. I got to change out laundry, but I'm in the chat.
Yaser Saeed?
I believe that was a subscriber. I was asked to look at two separate numbers.
Okay,
I was asked to look at 972-693-7756 and 972-693-8366, both with service provided by T-Mobile.
both with service provided by T-Mobile.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and who was the registered subscriber?
I believe that was Saeed. I can't remember the first name.
Okay, Islam Saeed, does that sound familiar?
Yes, ma'am, that does sound
Okay.
familiar.
And the phone number, the 972-693-7756.
Yes,
Who
ma'am.
did that belong to?
I was told that was utilized by Yaser Saeed.
And the 972-693-8366?
That was used by Sarah Saeed.
Okay. And do you have a copy of those records that you can refresh? Would you like to see?
If I could have a copy, that'd
Okay.
be great.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Agent Sedgwick, I'm handing you what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit 109. Are these are records that you reviewed in preparation to make your report and complete your analysis?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Okay, I'll leave that there with you. Okay, so through those phone records, are you able to tell incoming and outgoing calls?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Okay, the length of calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how are you able to get this cell tower data information?
The tower and sector utilized by the phone is in those records. And then taking the contemporaneous tower list that's in existence at the time. So obviously I want to have, this was in January of 2008. So I want to use towers that were in existence in January 2008, not the towers that are in existence now. I will plot all those cell towers on a map, and then I will plot the individual uses of the device showing what tower and sector was utilized by the phone on particular calls.
And you plot this using some type of application or system?
Mapping software, yes, ma'am.
Mapping software, okay. Now tell the jury a little bit about 2008 versus now 2022.
Well, back in 2008, we still had 2G and 3G. 4G wasn't really in existence at that point. It was slowly coming out by then, but we were still in pretty much a 2G, 3G world. So the networks are now are much, we're 4G, 5G starting to roll out. So the network continuously evolves as we move forward in time.
So the technology back then in 2008, of course, was not as advanced as it is now in 2022.
Basically it comes down to data rates, but it's still cellular technology. It's the basics of it is all the same.
Okay. And did you create some slides and a report for your testimony here today?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, I'm going to approach you with that. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm handing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 110. Are you familiar with this disc?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had an opportunity to view it prior to your testimony here today?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is contained on the disc?
It's a copy of my report.
Okay, the report that you prepared
Yes, ma'am.
for today? Okay, do you believe it's a true and accurate copy of the report?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
State author of State's Exhibit 110. Chairman of the Defense Counsel?
No objection.
This is it. 110 is admitted for all purposes.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
You may.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this time to the demonstrative. I believe the reports indicate that the phone notated as belonging to Sarah actually belonged to
Can
Islam.
you speak up a little bit more?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to object to the demonstrative. It's not representing the facts correctly. I believe the T-Mobile records indicate that phone belonged to Islam, not to Sarah, and so the demonstrative would be factually incorrect.
You're talking about this, that's on the.
The one that she handwrote and put on the
Okay.
TV screen.
Counsel, can you remove your handwritten notes?
Yes, Your Honor, this is just capturing the witness's testimony, and this is what he just testified to.
I understand. Please remove it from the.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Okay, Agent Sedgwick, can you see that there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the first page of your report.
Yes, ma'am. This is just a cover sheet. It shows the two numbers that I did my analysis. You'll see they're kind of color coded. 7756 will be in red and 8366 will be in green throughout the entire presentation. And then it shows the date that this presentation or my report was finalized, which was 12/20 of 2020.
And just for clarification for the record, the 7756 was associated with Yaser Saeed and the 8366 was associated with Sarah Saeed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So moving along, page 2, tell us, how does a cell phone work?
This is my written report, and it's the methodology, which is I take the call detail records for the target phones, and then I utilize the concurrent tower list to map it. But the way a cell phone works is when it's sitting in your pocket and you're not actively in a call or a text, it is scanning the radio frequency or RF environment for a T-Mobile phone will obviously look for T-Mobile towers. Is going to look for the strongest signal with the least amount of interference, generally the closest tower. And then it'll what we refer to as camp on that tower. So it'll sit there and listen to a broadcast channel that every tower broadcasts continuously. When you hit send on your phone, that tower reaches out on that control tower to the tower it was camped on, and that is what's populated in the call detail records, the tower the phone itself chose. For an incoming call, the network has a general idea where your device is. It knows, like, my devices are in Dallas. It doesn't know what tower my device is camped on. So when I get an incoming traffic, it'll page all the towers in that area and I'll respond on that control channel. And that will be the tower and sector populated in the call detail records. Again, the tower and sector the device itself chose as being the strongest signal at that time.
Okay. Moving on to page 3. What are we looking at here?
This is how the majority of the cell towers in the United States are designed. Most towers are broken up into 3 sectors or pieces of pie. Each sector covers approximately 120 degrees. They'll actually cover a little bit more. They cover approximately 130 degrees because there is an overlap between sectors and there's overlap between cell towers. Since these are mobile phones, the networks don't want hard lines where, the coverage of one tower ends and then, and then there's a hard line and then the coverage of the next tower begins, because you'd have drop calls as you're crossing those lines. So there's a bleed over and overlap between sectors. But in the records, I'm provided the tower and the sector, and those can be oriented in any direction they want. But in this case, let's say I have a tower that's oriented at 60 degrees. That tower will cover 60 degrees to either side of that center azimuth. So on a clock face, that'd be 2 o'clock would be the center azimuth. That tower would cover from approximately 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock on a clock face.
Okay. Go to slide 4. What are we looking at here?
This is how I demonstrate the approximate coverage area of a cell tower and the sector. In this case, this tower is oriented to 0 degrees or due north. And you see the 2 sector arms showing that 60 degrees to either side of that center azimuth. And the shaded area is just to show how the energy goes out in an upside down funnel shape. So as you get farther away from the tower, it expands, but is not inclusive of the coverage area. The coverage area is determined by the next closest tower. And cell towers roughly go out 70% of the distance to the next tower. Obviously, that other tower is coming back 70%, so that's where that overlap comes into play.
Now slide 5. Is this how you designated in your report how we are to understand which color coordinates with which phone? Associated with which phone?
Yes, ma'am. I was told that the telephone number ending in 8366 was utilized by Sarah Saeed, and that number ending in 7756 was utilized by Yaser Saeed. I can't say.
Hold it, Jeff. As he's indicated, he was told that the phone numbers were associated with different individuals. He has not independently verified that. So his statements and the information provided within this demonstrative and this evidence would be based on hearsay and admissible, Your Honor.
The state's response.
Yes, Your Honor. This witness has been designated as an expert. Experts can rely on hearsay evidence to form a report on basis of an opinion. This witness hasn't testified to it yet, but will proffer that has learned this from law enforcement in preparation for his report today.
Defense objection is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So you learned this information from law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am. And as I was about to say, I can't say who was carrying either of these devices at any time during my analysis. I can't say who placed any of the phone calls. I was just told who these numbers are associated with.
Thank you. Okay, so moving past this slide.
If we go back, I was also provided 2 addresses by law enforcement. The Saeed residence of 1023 Lakeland Drive in Louisville, Texas. And that'll be designated by the yellow orangish flag with a little house in it. And then where the victims were located, the Omni Mandalay Hotel, 221 East Las Colinas Boulevard in Irving, Texas, and that'll be a red flag.
Okay, so the yellow house is the Saeed residence and the red flag is the Omni Hotel.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving on to slide 6. Both of these phones were with T-Mobile, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and so these dots, what do they indicate?
Every single dot you see is a T-Mobile cell tower that was in existence back in January of 2008. As you can see, as you get closer to downtown areas, the towers get closer together, almost on top of each other. As you get more rural, they spread out. That is due to capacity issues. They need more towers where there are more people to provide the coverage. So the coverage area of a tower depends on where on the planet it is with the other towers around it. But all those green dots are a T-Mobile cell tower, and then the two addresses are mapped on the map also.
Let me ask you this question, Agent Sedgwick. Are there more towers today than there were back then in 2008?
Yes, ma'am, especially with the advent of 5G. 5G towers are going to cover much smaller areas depending on what type of 5G tower it is. So the networks have towers and put up more infrastructure to provide that coverage. Also, they've gotten more customers, so they've had to expand the networks.
All right. So would you say this kind of begins your analysis?
Yes, ma'am.
In slide 7. Hold on 1 second. We have
Well,
a technical issue.
the console just turned off. Good. Is your console, is it mine?
Mine's dead also.
Restarting it. Go to slide 7. Okay. Are we looking at slide 7 in your report?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Tell us what we're looking at here. It says January
Sorry, you
1st,
guys, I was
2008
just,
from 1:01 p.m.
I had to
to
fix
6:15
Nightbot. Sorry
p.m.
about that. I
We
was
have
just
site
checking.
residence
It
designated
works.
with the yellow flag, victims located, that's the red flag for the Omni. And I see 2 different cell towers, CID 14231 and CID 12600. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you tell the jury the importance of this slide?
What we're seeing is that between 1:01 p.m. and 6:15 p.m., both devices were utilizing towers and sectors that have a coverage area that included their residents, the site residents. This is kind of a classic example of that built-in overlap of the network. The house falls kind of in the overlap of those 2 towers and sectors. So it's not unusual to see the phone, even if it was at the house, to use both towers. But as I stated, I can only say the phones utilize a tower and sector that has a coverage area that includes the residents. I can't say where within the coverage area the device was.
Okay, so looking specifically to CID 12600, you have an incoming call to 8366, which is associated with Sarah Saeed. Then you have an incoming call to 7756 at 141, which is associated with Yaser Saeed. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then you have another call to Yaser Saeed at 2:14 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
One to Sarah Saeed at 3:27.
Yes, ma'am.
Another one to Sarah Saeed at 3:40.
Yes, ma'am. That was an outgoing.
Outgoing. Then you have an outgoing call from Yaser Saeed at 7, with his last 4 digits 7756 at 3:44 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you have an incoming call to Yaser Saeed at 5:29.
Okay,
Yes,
Amelia.
ma'am.
And then you have an outgoing call from the victim, Sarah Saeed at 8366, her last 4 digits at 6:15 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and they are all of these calls from Sarah Saeed and Yaser Saeed are hitting from the same cell tower.
Cell tower and sector. Yes, ma'am.
Cell tower and sector. Okay. And then at CID 14231, you have Yaser Saeed hitting off of a different cell tower.
At 1:33 p.m. So his first activity in this time frame was on the tower to the west, and then his device moved or started utilizing the tower 12600.
Okay, tell us how that works, how they could sometimes use, hit off of different towers, but in close proximity.
One, obviously they could have been moving, he could have been traveling at that point, or if he was at the residence, he could have just been on a different side of the house. depending on the overlap. Movement of 10 feet can change which tower you see if you're kind of in that overlap area between towers.
Okay. And these towers all are associated with the Said residence, the 1023.
Yes, ma'am. What I can say is both those towers and sectors have a coverage area that include that residence.
That includes that residence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it is believed that these two, if it was believed that these two devices were together at this time frame, is your analysis consistent with that?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. Moving on to slide 8. So we're moving past the Said residence, and we're now looking at a different time frame.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 6:57 p.m. to 7:33 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now I see 3 cell towers. 10502, 10801, and 10872. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Looking at 10502.
I just know I gotta get it done because I've got
She receives an incoming call
stuff to,
at 6:57.
I have to get it done when I can,
ma'am.
you know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I'm going to be live
Are you
again
aware
tonight
the
too.
number?
So
Yes, ma'am. That number was 214-529.
plus if it builds up, then I really get overwhelmed and don't want to do it.
Will you please say it again?
214-529-4191.
And whose phone number is associated with that?
I was told by law enforcement that was associated with a Mr. Ruiz, who was her boyfriend at the time.
Ruiz.
Ruiz.
Edgar Ruiz?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's at 6:57 p.m. on January 1st, 2008.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do you know how long that call was for?
I believe right around 15 seconds, but I could confirm that.
Will you please?
Actually, that was about 6 seconds. I'm sorry. 6
Okay.
seconds.
So that's for 6 seconds.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, now let's look at CID 10801. We have Sarah Said, last 4 digits, 8366. She is making an outgoing call at 7:33 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
And who is that call to?
That call was to 911.
That call is to 911. How long is that call?
2,500 seconds or 41 minutes and 40 seconds.
41 minutes. So the line is on for 41 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then you have CID 10872.
Yes, ma'am.
This number, last 4 digits, 7756, is associated with Yaser Said. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that call is an incoming call at 7:29:23 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who called Yaser Said at that time?
That was an incoming call from telephone number 972-339-2914. And I was told that was associated with the defendant's wife.
Patricia Said?
Yes, ma'am.
How long was that call?
That call was 25 seconds.
Okay. So just so I can make sure that we understand, Yaser Said is getting a call for 25 seconds at 7:29:23 p.m.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And what I can say is the call at 7:29 from Mr. Said's phone and the call at 7:33 from the victim's phone, utilizing towers and sectors that are facing each other, so they have an overlapping coverage area. They're 4 minutes apart, so I could say that those phones are in the same general area. I obviously can't say they're together, but both phones in that 4-minute window are in the same general area.
Okay, same general area. Okay.
That does sound
Okay,
fun.
looking back at the phone records. Is there ever a period?
I want to work
where
on
the
some
defendant's
jewelry.
phone ending in 7756, where he is no longer getting off of any cell phone?
Yes, starting the 7:29 call is the last call that I have tower information. Starting at 7:55 on, all the traffic is incoming, going to voicemail with no tower information. So this could indicate either that they're just ignoring the incoming calls, At this time, T-Mobile, when they showed it, voicemail didn't provide the tower of the call, that the incoming call to the device. So I can only say that either the device was off, they were just ignoring those calls, letting them roll the voicemail, or they put it in airplane mode or something like that where it wasn't connected to the network.
So it wasn't connected to the network.
That's one possibility. With the records at this time, I can't see. Now T-Mobile shows the incoming call and then the routing to voicemail. And the incoming call, if the phone is on and you just let it roll to your voicemail, will give a cell tower and sector. But at this time, they just show the routing part to voicemail, which does not include tower information.
Okay, so you listed several different ways. Airplane mode, phone was turned off. So it could be a logical conclusion that this phone could have been turned off.
That is one conclusion that could be made, yes, ma'am.
Does this phone connect to any cell tower information afterwards?
No, ma'am, it never connects in the time frame of the records I have. It
And the
doesn't,
time frame was from January 1st through January 2nd, is that right?
I believe so, yes, ma'am, and there's no tower information. The last call I show for the 7756 number is at January 2nd at 6:04 p.m. And in between the last call and this call, all the activity was incoming with no tower information and rolling to voicemail.
Continuous rolling to voicemail.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that call that you see was rolled to voicemail.
Yes, ma'am.
Huh.
Okay. Now, in addition to you working for the CAS team, you mentioned that you were part of the SWAT team for the FBI.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you participate in trying to locate the defendant at the Bedford residence on August 14th of 2017?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, tell the jury a little bit about your role in that.
I was the primary breacher for that operation, which the breacher, my job is to open the door, usually utilizing a ram. In this case, I did use the ram to breach the door. The door was locked from the inside with a deadbolt, so it had to be deadbolted from the inside. There was no key to undo the deadbolt. It was an internal only deadbolt lock. And then while clearing the residence, the apartment, I also opened the sliding glass door leading out to the balcony, which was unlocked.
Your Honor, at this time, State Officer States Exhibit 254, which is testimony from Agent Sedgwick as to the phone numbers and who they're associated with. 10 minutes, defense counsel.
10 minutes as what?
Well, let me see what's going on. Yeah, I see 13 too. Thumbs up.
Objection?
But I also see 17 in chat. So which four of you are not giving me a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Come on, y'all.
Thank you. Defense objection is overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you all like a 15-minute break at this time? Okay. Let's be back at 10:55.
Okay, now, here's one thing that maybe I'm going to have to go back and watch more in depth after I get off of here, because I want to understand the cell phone data that they've just shown as far as the towers and the location, because I want to see. I'm very curious about this phone call from Patricia, which is the girl's mom, to Saeed, which she testified to, and if I'm remembering correctly, she remembered pretty accurately, close enough to when she called his cell phone, and he said that he was at the gas station, and I'm curious about if that were true or not. It's not. This is why I'm asking this. hold on, let me mute this real quick. The reason I'm asking about this phone call is because there's something off about it. See, Patricia has testified, not just in court, but even in that documentary, The Price of Honor. She said that Yaser was very controlling. That he told her what to do and she did it, and that he was abusive. Okay. So she says that after she returned home from picking Amina up from her boyfriend Edgar Ruiz's home, well, his parents' home, I guess, or grandmother's home. Anyway, she brought Amina back to the house in Louisville. Okay, their home. And Amina says to her mother that she's hungry. So her mom says, I'm going to go heat you up some pizza. And Yaser says, no, I'm going to take the girls, just me and the girls, out to Denny's. Okay. So she says, all right. So she says that approximately, 30, 45 minutes later, she calls Yaser Saeed's phone, and he answers and he tells her that he is at the gas station filling up the cab. This is the part that's very confusing to me, because something is very off about that. Like I said, to me, is off about that call. She says the reason that she called his phone was to ask him if he would like Islam and her to join them at the Denny's for dinner, which, if he wanted them there, why didn't they all go together to begin with? Even if he wanted to have a private conversation with the girls, they still could have gone together and sat at separate tables and then, joined each other after the conversation was over, right? And it's not about him. She has no reason, excuse me, no motive to lie about. Well, I shouldn't say motive. Let me put it another way. If she reports that he tells her that he is at a gas station filling up the cab, it doesn't look negative for either one of them. It's not a bad thing. It's just but if Yaser is not telling her the truth about where he is, that's a problem for Yaser. But here's the bigger issue. Also, the timing isn't quite. I'm not quite understanding. What exactly did they do at Denny's? Because we're talking about, this would be New Year's Day evening, right? That this happened on. This is when they went to Denny's. Everybody knows that the best place to go when you're hungover is two places in Texas. There are two places to go in Texas to fix your hangover: Whataburger and Denny's. And I've never been at a Denny's for less than an hour, even if I wasn't hungover. So I'm curious, did they eat at Denny's? Did they go and get footage to see if Yaser and the girls even went to Denny's? And why was Patricia calling? The whole, I wanted to see if Yaser wanted us to join him story makes no sense. None. If he had wanted you to join, Patricia, you would have all gone as a family, period. He didn't want you there. So why were you calling? That's what I want to know. I want to know the truth. I feel at this point, based on the evidence up until this point, keeping in mind that as new evidence comes out, I will either change my mind or I will stay the same. But at this point, that phone call, coupled with Edgar Ruiz's testimony about Patricia saying they needed to hurry up. They were running out of time when she went to Edgar's to pick Amina up. Almost sounds to me like she was aware of what Yaser may be doing, and she was checking. That's what it makes me. Was she part of it? At this point, I haven't seen any evidence that she was a part of it. It is very concerning to me. Her behavior from the 29th on is very disconcerting to me. It is. It is what it is. It's just disconcerting. And I'm very, very interested. Obviously, the state is likely not going to put a whole lot of evidence, negative evidence out there about Patricia because they're not going to want to confuse the jury. But she's changed her story several times. That is a fact. She struggled on the stand. That is also a fact. And that could be for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is lying, quite frankly. I do think the Pink Dahlia that she was to a very large extent under his thumb. I mean, the fact of the matter is, when she and Yaser met and married, Patricia was 15 and Yaser was 28. That's a huge age gap. And they weren't actually, and I don't even like to use this word, but I don't know a different word to use, but they weren't like dating for very long, maybe a couple of months before Yaser wanted to marry her and got permission from Patricia's parents to marry her, but she wasn't unknown to the Said family because at one point she was speaking with Yaser's other, I believe, older brother, but one of his brothers for sure. So I'm not. I don't know I don't know what birth order the brother was, but she was talking to one of his brothers first, and I don't like to put it like that because she's 15 years old. And I remember when I was 15 and I thought I had the whole world figured out and I didn't, but I was pretty sure at 15 I did. And looking back from my 45-year-old self to my 15-year-old self, sometimes I just be shaking my head like what I didn't know. And I thought I did. So I'm not blaming her. I'm not trying to put her in some sort of negative light. She was 15 years old. And the adults in her life should have known better, period. That's just the way it is. But I do think that she was under his thumb. And even if she was under his thumb, at the end of the day, if she knew and if she helped, she's culpable, period. Legally and morally. That is her. Those are her children. She has a moral and legal obligation to protect her girls, to protect her children, period. Hey, coolest reviews. And from the testimony from both of the boyfriends, both Edgar and Eric, it was Patricia who was instrumental in them leaving from Oklahoma to go back to Louisville. See, when Edgar went out, Edgar is the one that drove everybody out from Texas to Kansas, from Kansas then to Oklahoma, where he is also the one who signed a lease for an apartment in his name. Okay, this would have been about they got to Tulsa around the 26th, I think, of December. On December 29th, Edgar's mom and dad come and pick him up from Tulsa, leaving Edgar's father's F-150 at the apartment for them to use. But they brought him back to Dallas for the New Year's Eve party that his family was having. And Amina wanted to go to the party, but she was 18 and could have if she'd have wanted to, but her mother said no. But then all of the sudden, the next day, that Sunday, which would have been the 30th of December, they all would be Sarah, Amina, Patricia, and Sarah's boyfriend, Eric, all drive back from Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Louisville. Tulsa's not that far from where they were in Texas, but that's disconcerting. What is it that changed? What happened? And so far, I still don't know. Even though Patricia testified for quite a long time, quite frankly, her answers respective to that don't fill in any blanks. They don't answer any questions for me, or I don't think anybody else, to be honest with you. And I do think that when the defense attorneys said that Patricia is one bad statement away from getting charges, they weren't over exaggerating. She is very problematic as a witness to this case. Now, she's problematic just in general as a mother and as a human being, but as it pertains to this case, she's problematic for this case. She could potentially, if the defense exploits it in the right, I shouldn't say exploits it, if the defense uses it correctly, she could be reasonable doubt. Well, when I watched that documentary, Sugar Beet, they did have, now I can't remember what his name was or what his position was. I'll have to go back, but he is Muslim, and he was explaining the Muslim religion, and he said that in the Muslim religion, that is not a thing, honor killings. That's not part of their religion. That's not part of their teaching. But he did agree that people in every religion throughout all of the years have exploited certain parts of their specific religion to fit their agenda.
Yes, Your Honor. And,
So-
as we discussed, I was going to use the black and white printout of the state's exhibit for this cross-examination. Thank you. May I approach may I stand up for working through this?
You may.
All right, would the appropriate title be officer or agent?
Agent, sir.
Agent Sedgwick?
Yes, sir.
All right. So Agent Sedgwick, backing up to this person.
But before we go on, at the very, very minimum, okay, this is what I'll say about the situation with respect to how well she knew Yaser Saeed. She testified that they had been at Denny's. They met Yaser. So Sarah and Patricia met Yaser at Denny's on either I think the 31st, the 30th or the 31st. Okay. And she testified about his demeanor in the days leading up to the murders. And one thing that she testified to is that when Yaser is angry, he chews the inside of his cheek. And while she acknowledged that he was welcoming to both her and Sarah, he was chewing the inside of his cheek. So if nothing else, she at least knew he was angry. And I wouldn't have let my girls go anywhere alone with somebody who had threatened them. The whole reason they left and ran away in the first place is because Amina says that Yaser threatened her with a gun. So I don't care how much. No, I wouldn't do it.
This is the one of the Saeed home, correct?
Yes, sir.
Here
But
we
that's just
see
me.
The tower here and a tower here, and multiple calls pinging off those towers.
Yes, sir.
And that's because these towers at that time were the best towers as far as capacity and the technology at that time to relay the technology and the signal from the.
I pushed the wrong thing. Sorry, you guys.
Well, not capacity, but as far as at the time, that was what the phone, those towers was what the phone saw the best at that time, with the strongest signal with the least amount of interference.
Okay, so we see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a tower here,
Yes, sir.
a tower here,
Yes, sir.
all right, another one up here,
Yes, sir.
we have another one here,
Yes, sir.
here,
Yes, sir.
here,
Yes, sir.
and here.
Can't see the one you're pointing out. You're not on the map.
Right
but-
here at 635 and corporate.
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh,
Sorry.
35 east and corporate.
Yes, sir.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other towers in this zoomed in map that potentially could have received data from those phones. But here we have obviously the ones that are closest to the home that the towers deem most appropriate for this transmission of data.
Yes, sir. Those are the towers the phone chose at that time. The phones chose.
And here again, I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different calls that are recorded in this evidence here, correct?
Yes, sir.
So if a tower can it doesn't jump to different towers for every signal, right? If it's got a good tower, it sticks with that tower.
Each call is its own event.
But it doesn't bounce unless there's something about the capacity of the tower interference with the signal or something like that.
Capacity is not an issue.
What was the proper term that you used earlier?
Well, it's the strongest signal with the least amount of interference.
Least amount of interference. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they do.
And
Sugar
here,
beet
I'm turning
because
to, page 8 of the document that has been entered into
That's what
evidence
happened.
as one of the state's exhibits. I'm not going to count it all up, and of course mine is in black and white, but I believe it's clear that these dark dots all over the place are various T-Mobile towers, correct?
Yes, sir.
In CID 105 or 10502, you said that this call at George Bush and 114, that general area, was an incoming call from Edgar Ruiz.
Yes, sir.
That's at 6:57 p.m.
Yes, sir.
Did you, clearly you converted these times from the standard, because they do the, what's the time frames
GMT.
that usually come in and you've got to decode it?
At this time, T-Mobile sent their records in switch or local time.
Oh.
But now the records come in UTC, which is
6 hours, isn't it?
basically a universal coordinated time. So it's a way to set time zones throughout the world.
We don't have to mess with that map here, correct?
No, sir.
These are what
Okay.
they are.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we have, and then just going in sequence here, that's about 6:57. Then we have this call here, which is CID 10872.
Yes, sir.
And this is at 7:29.
Oh, I agree, Bowling, with cotton balls.
Number associated with Yaser's phone.
Yes, sir.
And it is pinging off this tower.
Yes, sir.
I see towers here, 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 here.
Anything is
here. This
possible,
the
Pink
location of
Dahlia,
all, correct?
because
Yes, sir.
there is no
Whatever
statute
we
of
do,
limitations
it's
on murder.
time.
But
This
hold on, let me
tower
pause
was
this
the
because
best
I want to
tower
make sure we hear
pinging
this.
its call.
There's no statute of limitations on murder, but I would say it's not likely. I think that anything they may have been considering charging her with probably went out the window when they got her to testify. Quite frankly, I think she had incentive to testify. That's what I believe. But obviously, I can't. That'd be difficult to prove.
And transmit that data.
That is just what I
7:29, that's the
suspect.
tower sector the phone saw as the strongest signal with the least amount of interference. Yes, sir.
And when we're talking about the pie and the diagonal, I mean, it can be anything. I mean, if you were just to draw these lines out indefinitely, it's part of that zone, right?
Yes, sir. It's the rough coverage area would be probably.
Well,
something like
they
that might be a
needed
little
her
low,
in the
but
witness
something
ring
kind of like
because she
that
is the
in this tower,
intermediary.
I would
She is the
probably say,
connection
about like that.
between Yaser
Give or take,
and the girls.
obviously.
So there is a little
And
bit
she
of overlap,
was
but we're not talking about the entire area
integral
having
to the
overlap.
events
The
of
phone
January 1st. They had to
from
get her on there.
here to here, and
Either
here to
way,
here,
she was
here
going
to
to
here
testify,
within
whether it was for the
sort of
defense or for the
Luna to Royal
prosecutor.
Lane
She was
timeframe.
testifying. All right, I got to change out the laundry. I'll be right back.
Yes,
Y'all
sir.
behave.
What is the range for each tower? How far out can it reach?
And that's dependent on the other towers in the area. So for this case, the two towers involved are they're about 4,000 meters apart. So each one of them would go. So those two towers are 4,000 meters apart, or
About 2.5 miles?
about 2.5 miles. So that overlap area is probably a mile and a half, mile to mile and a half between the two towers.
How far is it from this tower in question to, do we have the tower data on this one? Just for proximity to the actual Omni?
Do you want the tower just south of the Omni? Is that
Sure,
where?
that would be a
Okay,
better
I
way.
want to make sure.
Yeah, that would be a better way to do it, to sort of gauge the range on that.
That's 5 kilometers.
5 kilometers. Would that be
5,000
beyond the
meters.
maximum capacity of any of the towers at that time?
No, sir. Towers can, it all depends on where you are on the planet. If I'm in a rural area, at that time, a tower could go 8, 9, 10 miles out. It's all, but since there are other towers in the area, the network designs by either the power output, the downside on the antennas, all kinds of factors. The engineers get paid a lot of money to determine the coverage area of these towers. So there's not huge overlap between towers because they have to reuse signals, everything that the way the network works. They want the energy to go into very specific areas. And based on my training and experience, I can determine the approximate coverage area based on the towers utilized and the other towers in the area.
Would the population in a given area go into your equation as far as interference and which tower the cell phone would ping off of?
No, sir, because the capacity of the tower at the time has no impact on what tower the phone chooses.
Okay.
If the tower was too busy, which very, very, very rarely happens, the call would just fail. It would not go out.
Okay. So what we know based on this is that at 7:29 p.m., the best tower for Yaser's phone was this one over here,
Yes, sir.
which is 2.5 miles away from the tower that pinged off the cigarettes. I'm sorry.
About, 2.5 miles. Yes, sir.
Okay. There's some general overlap there,
Yes, sir.
so I don't want to mislead anybody, but the technology at the time said that 2 different towers were the most appropriate technology and hardware for the 2 phones with calls that were 3 minutes apart.
Yes, sir. They were, roughly 4 minutes apart, but yes, sir, that, they're mobile phones, so they easily could have been moving at that point. I can't say with that, but those were the 2 towers that were utilized by the devices at that time.
And but all things considered, like we looked at the Saeed house, if they can use the closest tower, they're going to use the closest tower.
They're going to use, as I stated, the phone is going to utilize the strongest signal with the least amount of interference, generally the closest tower.
And as you pointed out, we know without a doubt that Edgar Ruiz was reaching out to one of the girls at 6:57 p.m.
Yes, sir. The phone associated with Mr. Ruiz, as I stated, I can't say who was in possession of any of the devices.
And then briefly, sir, you said you were at the apartment, and what was that? When you were the entry agent?
I was a member of the SWAT team, and my primary role was a breacher at that time. So I made the breach of the door to enter the apartment.
And that was when it was believed that Yaser was in the apartment,
Yes, sir.
and it was believed that he escaped out the second story window or the back patio.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who did the FBI have in charge of that back? What ground assets did you have in charge of that back area?
I don't know, sir. I was not there when it initially happened. The SWAT team was called out to make the breach, but I believe the belief is that he was gone before the SWAT team arrived.
Okay. What surveillance cameras did y'all have on that apartment?
I have no idea, sir.
No air assets?
I don't know, sir.
You blew in the door and he was gone.
Yes, sir. SWAT was called out to make the entry, and when we got there, the defendant was no longer there.
No further questions. Your Honor.
Just a brief question, Your Honor. Agent Sedgwick, I'm pulling up your report again.
Yes, ma'am.
Going to page 8, which I believe is the last page, second to the last page of the report. Defense counsel was asking me about the towers.
Yes, ma'am.
With the Omni.
Yes, ma'am.
The 10
Next slide, ma'am.
side.
8, I'm sorry.
Can you see that there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Cell tower 10502, 10801, and 10872. They're all pinging off of at least the victim's phone or the defendant's phone. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All 3 of those cell towers, are they located in Dallas County, Texas?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
I'll pass the witness.
Briefly, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
With tower 10801,
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, cool. Sure is. I get it. It's a sad case. It really is. It's tragic. All these cases are tragic.
Yes, sir.
I just think when it's a
As
parent,
you're moving, if you are.
it just makes it
is the phone
all
in
the
your
more.
towers at that point?
Yes, sir. It'll, what's called as referred to a handoff or a handover.
That
So
wasn't
can
Edgar,
happen,
babe.
And that
Hold
sometimes
on.
is
Let me push
populated,
pause.
But
So that wasn't Edgar. See, when I watched the documentary yesterday, I was very confused about this because the boy that they interviewed, his name is Joseph Moreno. It's a totally different kid. And when I watched the documentary yesterday, in between lives, I was like, why are they talking to Joseph Moreno? What is he? I don't get it, right? Why are they talking to an old boyfriend about about the situation? Like, yes, he would be able to tell us about Amina, right? Because at one point he dated her, but he wasn't around for this situation, right? So I'm sorry, Coolest. This one's a tough one. So I was very confused, but I continued. Of course, I kept watching and paying attention and all that stuff. So the way that the documentary sort of frames the Joseph Moreno, Edgar Ruiz situation is that when Yaser found out about Joseph and Amina, they were living in Bedford. And they had met at the where they took taekwondo classes, Joseph and Amina. All right. So when once Yaser found out about them, he up and moves the family from Bedford to Louisville, which is where they lived when the murders occurred. Okay. And there were, and they were no longer in communication. However, Amina did reach out to Joseph's mom, I believe her name was Ruth, and they had they stayed in almost constant communication. They emailed back and forth. And then there were two times in that period when Yaser took them to Egypt. And that's when Amina told Ruth that Yaser was trying to marry her to a 45 or 47-year-old man, and she was 16 at the time. And so essentially the story is that Amina and Edgar were not actually boyfriend and girlfriend, according to the documentary. Now, Edgar has a different take on the situation. He says that they were, and that he proposed to her. They had future plans. They were going to get married, etc. But that Edgar was simply a stand-in for Joseph, that Amina really, and she was in communication with Joseph when they ran away, unbeknownst to Edgar, apparently. But Edgar was supposed to be a distraction for Yaser, so that Yaser, when they ran away, that Yaser wouldn't come looking for Joseph or his family. And that once they had been away for enough time and things were safe, Joseph and Amina were supposed to be reunited. That's what I think. Or that's not what I think. That's what the documentary alleges. But when we watched Joseph, and Joseph has not testified yet. I don't know if he's going to, but when we watched Edgar Ruiz's testimony, that is definitely not the picture he painted.
It is the last tower. It had usage, but in a very long call like that, it would populate the last phone call or the tower utilized by the phone at the end of the call. What would be populated in the call detail records.
No, Sugar. I got it messed up
so
too, Sugar
it's-
Beat. I couldn't understand it either. I was so
The tower
confused.
that's listed here may not have been the only tower that phone pinged off of. It's just the last tower that phone pinged
It
off
was
of.
the first tower,
The first.
and it was also the last tower that it pinged off of. It was the same tower. I'm going to
So
confirm
there would have
that.
been multiple tower identifications if there were a different start and a different.
No, sir, not necessarily. The way it works is you can start a call, and the network could, 2 seconds into your call and you not move, switch you to another tower that you're also in the coverage area of. But the records only give me the first tower and the last tower. I don't see any other handoffs within that time frame, if that makes sense.
So this exhibit may not even accurately demonstrate what happened that night. I mean, this is a very limited set of database on what you just explained.
No, sir. What this shows is that 7:33 p.m. at the beginning of that call, that device was in the coverage area of that cell tower.
Correct, but let's say if you were to go to the Omni and you have 3 towers right there.
Bye, Coolest Reviews. I'm
still
sorry,
wouldn't
babe.
get to that part
This
of
one
the
is
call.
sad, and I'm sorry it's
It possibly
affecting you
could,
so badly.
Possibly.
But I
It possibly
appreciate you
could
coming in and
because
showing support. I
there's
do.
dominant, and then there's coverage area. So the phone's going to choose the dominant, but it might stay on that, even though it's a weaker signal, and one of the towers closer to the Omni would be a stronger signal, but they're still usable, so it could stay on that tower.
But we don't know for certain whether that is or whether this is just the data that we have at this point.
It ended, the records show that it's utilized the same tower and sector for the beginning of the call and at the end of the call.
Okay. And the Yaser was over there 2.5 miles away.
his phone at 7:29 was about 2.5 miles to the east. Yes, sir.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, may this witness be released?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. You're free
I
to-
don't think
Thank you, Your Honor.
that last bit of testimony right then just helped Yaser at all. All right, because what they have is,
Go ahead, next witness.
hold on, I'm going to push pause so you guys can, so we can talk about this. So what they have, what the FBI agent just said, essentially is that at the time that Sarah made the 911 call, Yaser's cell phone was pinging on a different tower 2.5 miles away. That did not help him at all.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the state rests.
Oh my.
What says the defense?
Your Honor, we're gonna have to take up some motions outside the presence of the jury.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another 15-minute break. Let's be back at 11:30.
They're resting. They're not going to call, well, the state's not going to call Joseph, and they're not going to call his mom either. Doesn't look like. Holy guacamole. No, I don't know what to say. Yeah, they rested. The state has rested. See, this is why I like watching these live trials, because we're all seeing the same. We're all seeing it live, and we're all like, wait, what? They did what? Yeah. I'm just as shocked as y'all. I'm floored. Absolutely floored. I mean, far be it from me to tell you how to do your job, Madam Prosecutor, but
The record reflects that the defendant is present with his attorneys, the state is present, and we are outside the presence of the jury.
Your Honor, at this time.
One second. At this time, the court will admit State's Exhibit number 254 for demonstrative purposes only.
y'all, I don't know what to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense will move for an instructed verdict. The state has wholly failed to prove venue and the constituent elements of the offense. No one was able to testify that the murders occurred in Dallas County, and there's a complete absence of proof that our client is the person who committed the alleged offense. The 911 call is unintelligible, nor has anyone directly identified the caller's voice, and the state has a gaping unaccounted for time frame between the last time the defendant and the complainants were seen driving in a taxi and the time frame of the discovery of the complainant's bodies. The state has failed to make a prima facie case in its case in chief, and we would move for an instructed verdict of not guilty.
Thank you. What's the state's response?
Your Honor, in response to their directed verdict motion, the evidence is to be viewed in the light most favorable to the non-movement, which is the state. We need to prove the scintilla of evidence to survive a directed verdict. In this case, Your Honor, you've heard from several witnesses that we have met the venue element, as just stated by this agent, Agent Sedgwick. During his testimony, he testified that all of the cell towers were hitting off in Dallas County, Your Honor. We had several of the officers testify that where the girls' bodies were found was in Dallas County. Venue, I believe, probably says it can be where the murder happened or where the bodies were found. And in addition, I believe.
Oh, you're so welcome, Rochelle. Hope your doctor's appointment goes well, and I'll hopefully see you tonight
Defense counsel mentioned an issue
tomorrow
with
for sure.
venue as well as identifying the defendant, I believe, was an issue. And I believe that several people have identified the defendant. as well as the victims, identified the defendant in the 911 call. It's very audible. It's very clear to understand that she said, "My dad shot me." I don't think there's any issue there. I can't recall all of the issues that defense counsel presented, Your Honor, but as to each and every element, I believe we presented more than enough evidence to submit this to a jury.
That's the motion. The defense motion for a directed verdict is denied. Are there any other matters, the
I'm
defense
gonna
wishes
I'm
to
gonna
take
be
on
live
outside the
at
presence of the jury?
8:30 Eastern.
No.
Rochelle.
Okay. The defense ready to proceed?
You don't mind.
Wow, wow. I mean, I have to agree with the state's assertion. I would say this, though. I think that I'm curious why the state hasn't used Joseph Moreno and his mom. Particularly when you have let me I was just thinking about this.
And we would like to hash out ahead of time the parameters of his Fifth Amendment rights.
Okay.
What?
Do you want the court to admonish him, or do you want to put certain things on the record before?
Well, I think what we specifically wanted to discuss was that he will be testifying to a certain time frame. And we want to put the state on notice that he's only going to be testifying to this certain time frame, and he understands that he waives his Fifth Amendment privilege to the extent that it's required to be waived for that time frame. He will be asserting his Fifth Amendment right as it relates to anything having to do with the federal indictment. So I guess what we want to do is get this out there before he starts testifying and see if you will, I guess, make a ruling that he will be allowed to assert his Fifth Amendment right as it pertains to anything involving the federal charge, and that the scope of the cross-examination will be limited to what he puts in dispute through his testimony. And I have a couple of cases on that. Brown v. United States, which admittedly is a 1958 case, but it is still good law, cited as recent as 2020, about how the witness can put the issue in dispute and the scope of cross will be limited to what he has put in dispute.
Would you submit that, a
Yes,
copy
I'd be
of that
happy to.
case to the court?
Wow. Well,
And then we also wanted to put.
hold on. I'll wait. I'm going to wait.
Court in the state on notice of 608D, which is a rule of evidence that does not allow the state to cross-examine a testifying witness with extraneous acts. Now, to the extent that he puts something, there may be exceptions to that, but they cannot impeach him with extraneous bad acts unless it's a conviction. And that's rule of evidence.
The state has
608D,
rested
and I
nonstop,
have a
Mom.
case on that as well.
Okay.
And Yaser is going to testify.
Would you cite
That's
that?
Rivera v. State.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Rivera v. State.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, I think the reason that they didn't use Joseph and his mom
Anything else?
is because of the documentary.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that we have tendered the cases we mentioned to the court.
Yes, the record will so reflect. Is there anything else before I ask for the state's response?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay. What's the state's response to the defendant's requests or assertions?
Hold on, I want to hear what they say, and then I'll answer.
Regarding limiting scope of cross-examination, if the defendant chooses to testify, and Rule 608B.
Well, Your Honor, we object to limiting the scope of cross-examination. Now, as to regards to the federal harboring offense, I don't think we have any issue with that. But as for the offense from which he's being tried for, I would like to direct defense counsel to Rule 611 in Texas Rules of Evidence. 611B, scope of cross-examination, a witness may be cross-examined on any matter relevant to any issue in the case, including credibility. Your Honor, we'd like some time to research these cases. We have a case here from 1958. And we just like some time to research and respond, but we object to being limited to the scope of cross-examination if the defendant testifies. And I believe we are able to get into any matter that's relevant for this trial.
Hold on, I'm going to push pause. Well, let me just hear what they have to. Let's speed this up a little so we can be caught up, because they keep muting and it's kind of annoying me.
Your Honor, I mean, just for clarification on the harboring case, Yasin and Islam, we put on a lot of evidence of that. We're not going to be asking questions about Yasin and Islam, but the fact that he hid for 12 years is extremely relevant to this case. It shows consciousness of guilt. We should be able to ask him reasons why he hid for 12 years. I don't think we should be precluded from getting into that testimony as well.
Reasons why is one thing. Where he was, who helped him, that's totally different.
I think we should be able to get into that as well, Your Honor.
No,
That's extremely
we
relevant to the case.
disagree.
Well, Mr. Lawler, if the defendant takes the stand, the state is going to be able to cross-examine him on any relevant issue. That includes whether or not he was hiding from law enforcement, how he was found and detained, and every other thing or matter that is relevant to this capital murder case, if he chooses to take the stand.
But the court understands that the federal government still has an indictment pending against this defendant for running, basically.
I understand that.
Okay?
That's an integral
Has
part of,
nothing to do with
Mr.
that.
Lawler, would you wait till I finish?
Ooh,
Okay. Now, that seems to me
That's right.
to be an integral part of the state's case that Mr. Saeed was on the run,
mm-hmm.
allegedly on the run. And they ought to be able to cross-examine him on that and the fact that he was found. So the state is going to be able to cross-examine him.
Found, not he didn't turn himself in. He was found. He was
There's no
located.
exceptions to the court's ruling.
The record will so reflect. All right, is the defense ready to proceed?
You better be.
And we have a moment to talk with our client, and the state has requested time to research the issue.
Does the state need further time to research this issue?
My understanding, Judge, is that you've made a ruling that we can get into any relevant matter. If that's the case, then he's open subject to cross-examination, and we don't need any time.
All right, Mr. Lawler, I'm going to give you and your team another 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
So please be back here at 11:40.
Okay. So the ruling is that I understand why the defense is asking what they're asking for what they're asking for. Okay, because he has a pending federal case, and the Fifth Amendment is for you to be able to protect yourself from prosecution, right? So what they're saying is we don't want him getting up on the stand and under cross-examination inadvertently admitting to something which helps the federal government prosecute him, right? That's really what that's about, right? Now, as far as the Summer, what you're saying, That very well could be, but the jury is missing out on so much. Sad. Joseph and his mom had so much insight. They did. They did. But here's the problem. Okay. So let's say they get Joseph and his mom up on the stand. All right. And they testify to essentially what they said in the documentary, right? Under cross-examination, the defense would likely say, "You're here. You're aware that that this proceeding is being televised. You're here for your 15 minutes of fame." You know what I'm saying? They would call the fact that they participated in the documentary. Might be a credibility issue for the jury. But as Bowling with Cotton Balls has pointed out, the feds may use the emails between Amina and Joseph, or between Amina and Joseph's mom. And also, remember, there are other things going on that are integral to this case that have come out since since they've been with the investigation of the murders. The fact that it is documented, they didn't just make it up. They did go to Egypt twice, the girls and Yaser, and also is Islam and Patricia. That the family went to Egypt, and they took all of the electronics, including Islam and Yaser's, which is the older brother, or the brother. I can't remember if he's older or not, but the brother. And they took the girls and all kinds of devices. So who knows what was discussed on those devices? That could be there could be more charges coming for Yaser. We don't know. They have, okay, so yeah, other than Islam and Yaser, I'm kind of curious about that myself. One thing about the federal government is that when they're investigating something, they are I dotters and T crossers, and very methodical in the way that they do it. And so it takes time. It's, you know what I mean? And I don't know, because it depends on, you know how it is when a crime is investigated, even if it's not the federal government, right? When a crime is being investigated, all kinds of stuff gets learned in the course of an investigation, and it sometimes does lead to other charges. So I don't know, but I don't know. I don't think I feel like there should have, I don't know that the state should have rested, but I also don't know who else they could have called, honestly. See, but if she took a plea deal, y'all, wouldn't that be public record? Because in order for you to take a deal, you have to be charged with something first. Unless, so it wouldn't actually be a plea deal. What they could have done is offered her immunity from possible charges in exchange for testimony. That's different. So if they, so let's say they charged her with obstruction of justice, okay? And they said, okay, well, we're going to charge you with obstruction of justice. And in exchange for your testimony, we'll give you 5 years of house arrest or something like that. That's a plea deal. But if they offered her immunity in exchange for her testimony, that wouldn't be part of, I don't know if it would be part of the public record. You know what I mean? Because when you have somebody on the stand to testify as your witness, they are subject to cross-exam, right? And it's very evident from the opening statements that the defense feels that Patricia, at the very least, is a lying liar face who tells lies. And so through the course of cross-examination and answering questions, she may inadvertently admit to something, right? And so why would anybody want to, why would anybody take the stand unless they were offered immunity in that case? You know what I mean? I think that's what happened. If anything happened. Because one of the other things that the defense made a point of saying, yes, when she was testifying, or something they asked her, was when the last time she saw Yaser was. That she hadn't seen him since, she says she has not seen him since January 1st of 2008. My bad. Sorry, I don't know how to talk numbers, apparently. Too many 11 billions. Got Jen Lu confused. But the way that they asked it seems like they don't believe it. And I don't know if these are going to be the attorneys that are representing Yaser on his federal charges. That I'm curious about. I'm wondering if they're going to turn over evidence to the feds on her. I don't know. Oof.
Okay, is the defense ready? We're back on the record. Let the record reflect that the defendant is present with his attorneys, the state is present, and we are outside the presence of the jury. Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, we are ready to proceed. Thank you.
Come on, you guys. We're going to sit outside. It's so gorgeous, and it's not all that hot today. So
No, it's almost
let's go sit
lunchtime,
outside. You
so,
guys want to come with me? All right.
Do the parties want to take an early lunch break?
Oh my God. If you take an early break, you better not.
Whatever's needed.
But before we do that, what were you going to say, counsel?
I would just ask if you be able to take a statement for the three plaintiffs that they're not deserving of walking up there and shaking, or however the court would choose to handle that situation.
Yes, of course. Let's take a break, lunch break till,
You mean I sat here and waited and moved my whole show outside, and y'all are going to go to lunch?
12:40.
Annoying.
Did the jurors leave their notes on their seats? The notes on the seat. Okay, good. Instruct the jurors to go to lunch and be back by 12:40.
And just make sure I understand, so the defendant is going to be testifying?
Yes.
So I would ask that at least the defendant be admonished about his right against self-incrimination, his Fifth Amendment rights before he's testifying, that he formally waives his right against self-incrimination prior to his testimony.
Yes, of course. We'll do that outside the presence of the jury. So Deputy Hart, go ahead and instruct the jurors to go to lunch. Okay. On the record, Mr. Saini? All right. Your attorney
Boy.
has represented to the court that you do indeed want to testify on your own behalf. Is that correct? You understand that you have a right to remain silent. You do not have to testify. And should you choose to testify, you will be subject to cross-examination by the state, just like any other witness. They will be able to try to impeach you with bad acts, if there are any, and any other issues that arises from the evidence. Do you understand that?
I think it's one of his attorneys, babe. Only
And there is also, of course,
counsel
the
would be allowed
possibility
to
of
sit next to
incriminating
him.
yourself while you're testifying. Do you understand that? I
The
know
one
your,
that's talking to him, Sugar
experienced
Beat,
attorneys have discussed this issue with you. So knowing all the consequences of possibly testifying, do you still want to testify?
I think this.
Thank you.
I think that the
You may be
state
seated.
knew that there was a
Court will break for lunch
possibility
until 12:40.
that he would testify, but probably I'm surprised that he's testifying, quite frankly. And I think that's really more what the state is. I think that's their reaction as well. There's always a possibility that a defendant will testify in their own defense. However, it's not always a good idea. And I'm not sure it's a good idea in this case, quite frankly, because he's first and foremost. Hold on. We don't need that music. Thank you. And it's probably copyrighted. No, she's not. I don't think she's trying to talk him out of it. I think what she's doing is explaining it to him. I think she I think she's translating for him, to be honest with you. I think she's speaking to him in his native language. And I think that's because, so just because he is able to speak English and understand English, sometimes when in situations like this, which are high pressure situations, okay, he's on trial for capital murder, for Pete's sake, 2 counts. And, yeah, the death penalty is off the table, but I mean, if he's convicted, he's even on 1 count, he's facing life without the possibility of parole. So it's a high pressure situation. So he may feel more comfortable speaking, in his native language. It happens a lot. So I don't think she's trying. I can't believe they're going to put him on the stand. I just, especially with saying, well, we're going to put him on the stand and he's only going to testify to this one specific time period, nothing else. And we don't want him asked about anything other than this specific time period. Like, that's crazy pants. If you can't control what is going to happen on cross-examination, they're allowed to impeach him, as the judge just said. And so this is what, you know what I mean? He still wants it. I cannot believe he's going to testify, y'all. I am floored. This is a bad idea from a defense attorney's perspective, but from a YouTuber perspective who's streaming the trial, I'm glad that he is. Yeah, if he wants to. I think, you know what? Let me take that back. I remember very distinctly Warren Jeffs pleading the fifth to questions that he was asked. But I feel like when he was pleading the fifth, he wasn't testifying in his own defense. And I believe it was part of the penalty phase, if I'm not mistaken. And oof, I just think this is a bad, horrible, horrible idea. I do not think that this is going to be advantageous to him at all. At all. I mean, I think that what the defense is going to do is put him up on the stand to say, listen, Patricia kept a lot of stuff from me as far as the girls dating, right? She basically basically she, for lack of a better word right now, she aided and abetted these girls in dating, even though she knew it was against my wishes, right? I was not on board with it. She engaged in, in subterfuge and undermined my parenting, right? And to an extent, he's not wrong. I mean, it would be no different if, with my kiddos, if I said no, right? And then the kids went to my husband and asked, and he said yes without checking with me, I'd feel some type of way about that. Okay. And, excuse me. I think that they're going to have him testify basically saying, listen, how can I be angry at something I didn't know? Because that was part of the cross-examination of Edgar for sure. Like, did you ever meet Yaser? No. Did you ever tell Yaser that you wanted to marry Amina? No. So the person that's saying that Yaser is doing is had held held a gun or threatened Amina with a gun was Amina. This is what he's asked. This is what they were asking Edgar on cross. Patricia was the one that said it was safe. So what, there was like, Yaser wasn't part of any of it really, and I feel like that that's what the defense is going to try to get him up there to say. I loved my girls. I love my girls. I was a good dad. I no, I didn't do this. No, even if I, all that stuff, right? I ran because I was afraid, not because I was guilty, that kind of thing. But the truth of the matter is, on cross-examination, it's going to come apart. Yeah, this is going to be a mess, but we'll be here for it. All right, you guys. So this is where I leave you. Thank you all for being here. You are the best chat in all of these YouTube streets. And I will see you guys back here tonight at 8:30 Eastern time. And we're gonna see who the defense calls first. I thought this trial was going to go on much longer. I'm shocked that the state has already rested, but we're going to get there. And I can't wait. I got to know how this all is going to turn out. So I will see you all tonight. Again, thank you for being here. If you haven't already, please thumbs up the stream if you want to, or thumbs down, whichever one, if you just want to see what it does. And if you have anybody that that's interested in this case, feel free to share out my link. And I look forward to seeing you guys all tonight at 8:30 Eastern for the continuation of the state of Texas versus Yaser Saeed. All right. Until tonight, you guys, have a good rest of your Monday. Y'all stay safe out there. Bye.